You're not invited to the VIP section." Michael agreed with her, my own husband siding with his mother again. I kept my expression neutral as I ended the call with our Tokyo investors, my finger hovering over my sister-in-law's message. The irony would have been laughable if it wasn't so painful. The Royal Vista Hotel was just one property in the luxury hotel chain I'd built from the ground up over the last decade, a fact my mother-in-law Barbara had no idea about. To her, I was just her son's trophy wife, a pretty face who trapped her precious boy into marriage. "Miss John, the Singapore team is ready for their update," my assistant Kevin reminded me. I nodded, pushing thoughts of Barbara's party to the back of my mind. I had an empire to run, even if my in-laws thought I spent my days getting manicures and shopping. The thing about assumptions is that they're easy to make and hard to correct. When I met Michael 5 years ago, I was already a successful businesswoman, but I kept my professional life private. My company operated under my Chinese family name Zhang, while I used Michael's surname Thompson in my personal life. It wasn't intentional deception, just a separation of worlds that had proven useful over the years. Barbara had made her opinion of me clear from day one. A girl from nowhere, she'd said to Michael loud enough for me to hear. No family connections, no proper education. She'd never bothered to ask about my background, and I'd never bothered to correct her assumptions. Michael, eager to keep peace, had always brushed off his mother's behavior. "It's just how she is," he'd say. "She'll warm up to you eventually." 5 years later, I was still waiting for that warmth. I finished my calls and pulled up Rachel's text again. The party was this weekend. A lavish affair for 300 guests at my flagship hotel. Barbara had been working with my events team for months, though she'd never met the owner. Me, she just dealt with the managers throwing around Michael's name to demand special treatment. "Kevin," I called. "Get me Daniel from the Royal Vista." Daniel, my hotel manager, answered on the first ring. "Miss Zhang, I was just about to call you about Mrs. Thompson's birthday party. She's been quite demanding." I could imagine. "Tell me everything." The list was extensive. Barbara had insisted on the presidential suite at a discount because her son was friends with the owner. She demanded exclusive use of the VIP lounge where she planned to host an intimate gathering for select guests after the main party. A gathering I wasn't invited to, despite being her daughter-in-law. "She mentioned you might come," Daniel said carefully. "She was quite specific about where you should be seated. In the back, by the kitchen entrance." Of course she was. I pulled up the guest list on my laptop. All of Hartford's elite would be there. Judges, politicians, old money families. People Barbara had spent her life trying to impress. People who, ironically, I often sat with in boardrooms and charity committees, though she didn't know that. "Daniel, maintain all her arrangements," I decided. "But I want the security team briefed, and make sure Marcus is bartending the VIP lounge." Marcus was our best mixologist, and more importantly, he knew exactly who I was. The day of the party arrived bright and clear. Michael had left early to help his mother prepare, leaving me to get ready alone. "Mom thinks it's better if we arrive separately," he said, not meeting my eye. "You understand, right?" I understood perfectly. I chose my outfit carefully, a simple black Chanel dress, elegant but understated. No need to compete with Barbara's guaranteed extravagance. I arrived exactly on time, walking into the grand ballroom I helped design 3 years ago. Barbara had outdone herself. Ice sculptures, champagne fountains, a string quartet playing in the corner. She stood holding court near the entrance, resplendent in a red designer gown, Michael dutifully by her side. "Oh, you came," she said when she spotted me, her smile not reaching her eyes. "The general seating is that way. Michael, darling, help me greet the mayor." I watched them walk away, knowing how Michael's shoulders tensed. He knew what his mother was doing was wrong, but he'd never stand up to her, not without a push. I made my way to my assigned table next to the swinging kitchen doors. A few other outcasts were seated there, the second cousins Barbara tolerated, a neighbor she felt obligated to invite. They avoided my eyes, not wanting to be associated with the snubbed daughter-in-law. The evening progressed exactly as Barbara had planned. Dinner was served, speeches were made, and then came the announcement about the VIP gathering in the exclusive lounge. I watched as half the party made their way to the elevators, golden bands glinting on their wrists. Michael cast a guilty look my way before following them. Perfect timing. I pulled out my phone and texted Daniel, Time for phase 2. The next hour was a masterclass in subtle revenge. First, the air conditioning in the VIP lounge mysteriously malfunctioned, blasting heat instead of cool air. Then the premium liquor bottles kept coming up empty when Barbara's favorites were ordered. Small inconveniences, nothing too obvious. I sat at my kitchen-adjacent table, sipping champagne and waiting. 3, 2, 1. Right on cue, Barbara came storming out of the elevator, her face flushed with anger and heat. "Where is the manager?" she demanded. "This is unacceptable. Do you know who I am?" Daniel appeared, perfectly professional. "Is there a problem, Mrs. Thompson?" "Everything is a problem. The air conditioning, the drinks, the service. I want to speak to the owner right now." "Of course," Daniel said smoothly. "Miss Zhang is actually here tonight." Barbara's face turned triumphant. "Finally, where is she?" I stood up from my table by the kitchen, smoothing my dress. "Right here, Barbara." The silence that fell over the ballroom was absolute. Barbara stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Michael, who had followed his mother downstairs, went pale. That's not possible," Barbara sputtered. "You're just what?" I asked quietly. "A trophy wife. A girl from nowhere. The owner of this hotel and the entire Royal Vista chain. All of the above, actually." The whispers started, of course. Half the people here knew me as Yi Zhang, the businesswoman. They were just now connecting the dots. "Miss Zhang," Daniel said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "shall I have the air conditioning repaired in the VIP lounge?" "No need," I replied. "I think the party's moving back down here." I turned to the gathered crowd. "Drinks are on the house, everyone. Consider it a birthday gift to my mother-in-law." The next hour was chaos, but the kind I'd orchestrated. Barbara's carefully curated VIP group dissolved as guests migrated back to the main ballroom, many coming to greet me not as Michael's wife, but as Yi Zhang, the CEO they'd worked with for years. Michael approached me, his face a mix of shock and something else. Was it admiration? "Why didn't you ever tell me?" he asked. "You never asked." I replied simply. "You were too busy defending your mother's assumptions about me." He flinched. "Emily, Miss Zhang." The mayor's wife descended on us. "I had no idea you were Michael's wife. You must join us for the charity gala planning next week." I smiled. "Of course, though I usually prefer to be seated away from the kitchen." The mayor's wife had the grace to look embarrassed. She'd been at the VIP gathering after all. As the night wound down, I found Barbara sitting alone at what had been my table, staring at nothing. The irony wasn't lost on me. "The service is better here than you think," I told her, sliding into the seat next to her, despite the kitchen door. She turned to me, her carefully made-up face showing every year of her 60 years. "You've been laughing at me all this time," she said bitterly. "No, Barbara, I've been working all this time. Building something just like you always wanted Michael to do." I stood up. "Happy birthday. The presidential suite is comped, of course. Family discount." I walked away, hearing her sharp intake of breath behind me. My phone buzzed. Kevin with updates about our new project in Dubai. Time to get back to work. The story wasn't over, of course. There would be fallout, explanations needed, relationships to rebuild or end. But for now, I had given Barbara exactly what she'd always wanted. A birthday party people would talk about for years to come, just not for the reasons she planned. The morning after Barbara's birthday party, I woke up to 37 missed calls. Most were from Michael, who hadn't come home last night, a few from Rachel, probably checking on the fallout, and one from Barbara herself. I ignored them all and opened my laptop instead. The Asian markets were closing, and I had decisions to make. Being publicly revealed as Yi Zhang meant I could no longer maintain the careful separation between my personal and professional lives. Time to get ahead of the story. "Kevin," I said when he picked up, "schedule a press release. It's time to put a face to the Royal Vista brand." My phone buzzed again. "Michael this time," I answered. "Where are you?" His voice was rough, either from lack of sleep or too much drinking. "In my home office, where I am every morning at 7. You have a home office." I closed my eyes. 5 years of marriage, and he never once asked what was behind the double doors in our east wing. Had never wondered why I disappeared there for hours each day. "We need to talk," he said. Yes, we do. But first, I have a board meeting. Come by my office, my real office, at noon. Your office? He repeated, like the words were in a foreign language. At the Zhang Industries building downtown, 37th floor. Tell reception your wife is expecting you. I hung up before he could respond. There was a certain satisfaction in knowing he'd have to say those words, my wife, to get to me now. The morning passed in a blur of meetings and damage control. Word had spread fast in our social circles about last night's revelation. My PR team was already fielding calls from business magazines wanting to know how Hartford's most successful female CEO had managed to keep such a low profile. Mr. Thompson is here, my assistant buzzed. Send him in. Michael walked into my office like a man entering foreign territory. His eyes swept over the floor-to-ceiling windows, the modern art on the walls, the wall of awards I'd never displayed at home. He looked displaced in his casual clothes among the corporate sophistication. You've been busy, he said finally. For the past 15 years, yes. I gestured to the chair across from my desk, though you never noticed. He sat, running a hand through his disheveled hair. Mom's a mess. Of course that's what he led with. Always his mother first. Barbara's pride is hurt, I corrected. She'll survive. She says you humiliated her, deliberately set her up to fail at her own birthday party. No, she set herself up by trying to humiliate me. I just chose not to play the role she assigned me. Michael shifted uncomfortably. You could have told me about all this. Like you told me about agreeing to exclude me from the VIP section. He had the grace to look ashamed. That was wrong. I should have stood up to her. Yes, you should have. But you never do, Michael. And now I have to wonder, would knowing about my success have changed anything? Or would you have just had a different excuse for letting your mother treat me like dirt? My intercom buzzed. Miss Zhang, Tokyo is calling in 5 minutes. I looked at Michael. I have a company to run. We can continue this conversation at home. He stood looking lost. When will you be home? When I finish work. Like always. Understanding finally dawned on his face. All those times he thought I was at yoga, or shopping, or lunch with friends, I'd been here, building an empire while playing the role his family had cast me in. The next few weeks were a crash course in reality for the Thompson family. Barbara, unable to face her social circle after the party, fled to her sister's house in Florida. Rachel, who'd always been kinder than the rest, called to apologize for her years of condescension. I just assumed, she said. Because Mom said. A lot of people assumed, I replied. That was their mistake. The business press had a field day with my story. Hidden CEO. The woman who built an empire in secret. Ran one headline. Trophy wife or business mogul. The double life of Emily Zhang Thompson declared another. I gave exactly one interview to a respected business journal. When asked why I'd kept my professional life separate, my answer was simple. Success speaks for itself. I didn't need to announce it. The article went viral. Michael moved into our guest room. We were in limbo. Not quite separated, not quite together. He attended therapy, trying to understand his role in enabling his mother's behavior. I watched him struggle with the realization that his trophy wife was more successful than he'd ever be. Barbara returned from Florida after a month, considerably subdued. She requested a meeting through Michael. I'll see her at the hotel, I decided. In the VIP lounge. She arrived exactly on time, dressed with her usual elegance but missing her usual arrogance. Marcus served drinks without being asked. Champagne for me, water for her. You've redecorated, she said, looking around the lounge. Yes, the whole hotel is being renovated. We're expanding. She flinched at the we. I suppose you want me to apologize. No, Barbara, I don't need your apology. What I want is for you to understand something. I leaned forward. I am not the woman you imagined me to be. I never was. Your son married a CEO, not a trophy. And if you want any relationship with us going forward, you need to accept that reality. And if I can't, then you'll miss out on a lot more than VIP access to my hotels. She took a shaky breath. Michael is in therapy. Yes, because of me, because of himself. He's finally facing his own role in our dynamics. She stirred her water, the ice cubes clinking against the glass. And you? Will you forgive him? That depends on Michael. On whether he wants to be a partner or just a son who never grew up. The renovation works echoed through the building, a fitting soundtrack to our conversation about rebuilding. I looked you up, Barbara said finally. Your company, your achievements, the charity work. She paused. The scholarship program for underprivileged girls. Someone has to help the girls from nowhere achieve their dreams. She flushed, recognizing her own cool words thrown back at her. As she left, she turned back one last time. For what it's worth, I was wrong about you. I know, I replied. I always knew. That evening, I found Michael in my home office, really looking at it for the first time. He was studying the framed photo on my desk, us on our wedding day. I was so proud that day, he said without turning around. Proud that someone as beautiful as you had chosen me. I never thought to be proud of anything else about you. And now? He turned, his eyes red. Now I'm ashamed of myself, of how I let Mom treat you, of how little I knew my own wife. He swallowed hard. But mostly I'm in awe of everything you've built, of how strong you are. I don't deserve you. Probably not, I agreed. But deserving me isn't the point, Michael. Supporting me is. Being a true partner is. Can you do that? I want to try. He gestured to my desk. Show me. Tell me about your company, your work, everything I should have asked about years ago. I sat down in my chair, watching him settle into the visitor's seat, just like in my downtown office. But this time, he was ready to listen. It started 15 years ago. I began with one small hotel and a dream. 3 months after Barbara's birthday party, we hosted another event at the Royal Vista. The official launch of our Asian expansion combined with the announcement of a new scholarship foundation for women in business. Michael stood beside me as I gave my speech, his hand supportive on my back. Barbara sat in the audience, not in the VIP section, but not by the kitchen either. Progress comes in small steps. Rachel had joined my board of directors, bringing her legal expertise to the company. She'd broken free of Margaret's influence, finding her own voice in the process. As for me, I was finally fully myself, like Chin Williams, CEO of Grand Haven Hotels, and a woman who had built her success one careful brick at a time. No more hiding, no more playing small to soothe others' insecurities. The trophy wife was gone. In her place stood what had been there all along, a woman who had built an empire. While others underestimated her, a woman who had turned assumptions into advantages and silence into strength. After all, sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, it's success on your own terms.
The cream-colored envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. Through the translucent paper, I could make out the elegant cursive that could only belong to one person: Violet. My hands trembled as I picked it up, the weight of it far heavier than mere paper should be. I'm Anne, and that envelope contained an invitation to a housewarming party. At my house. The one I designed, the one I poured my heart into, the one that was supposed to be my forever home. Now it belonged to my ex-husband Malik and his new wife Violet. You have to be kidding me, I muttered, tearing open the envelope with more force than necessary. The invitation was as pretentious as I expected, thick cardstock with gold foil lettering. My phone buzzed. It was my sister Zoe. Did you get it? Oh, I got it all right, I said, pacing my rental apartment's kitchen. They're having a housewarming party. In my house, the house I designed. The nerve of those two, Zoe's voice crackled through the speaker. What are you going to do? I walked to my window, staring at the city skyline I used to see from my dream home's master bedroom. Nothing. I'm not going. Maybe you should. What? I stopped pacing. Have you lost your mind? Think about it, Anne. You're an architect. That house is your masterpiece. Are you really going to let them take that away from you too? I pressed my forehead against the cool glass. 6 months ago, Malik had blindsided me with divorce papers and a new girlfriend. 3 months ago, he'd somehow convinced the judge to award him the house in the settlement. Now here I was, living in a cramped apartment while they played house in my creation. You don't understand, I said. That house, every inch of it was designed with purpose. The breakfast nook that catches the morning sun perfectly. The studio with the north-facing windows for optimal light. The secret compartment behind the kitchen pantry, Zoe interrupted. I froze. How did you know about that? You showed me when you were building it, remember? said it was the perfect place to hide important documents. Something clicked in my mind. The original blueprints, I whispered. They're still there. Exactly, Zoe said, and I bet neither Malik nor his precious Violet know about it. My heart started racing. Those blueprints, along with all the original documentation from the build, could change everything. I'd hidden them there during construction, never thinking I'd need them. My phone buzzed again, a text from Aidan, my best friend and attorney. Got the invitation. We need to talk. Zoe, I have to go. Aidan's calling. Think about what I said, she urged. Sometimes you have to walk through fire to reclaim what's yours. I ended the call and immediately dialed Aidan. He picked up on the first ring. Tell me you're not actually considering going to this party, he said. I wasn't. But now... I walked to my desk, pulling out the folder containing my divorce papers. Aidan, there might be something in the house, something that could help us. Anne, as your lawyer, I should tell you to stay away. As your friend... He paused. What exactly are we talking about? Original blueprints, building permits, contractor agreements. Everything from when I designed and built the house. The ones that mysteriously disappeared during the divorce proceedings? Exactly. I flipped through the papers, stopping at the property deed. Malik claimed he contributed significantly to the house's design and construction. These documents prove otherwise. And you're sure they're still there? I thought about the hidden compartment, remembered the satisfaction of creating that secret space. Yes. Then maybe, Aidan said slowly, we should RSVP to that party. I looked at the invitation again. 2 weeks from Saturday. Cocktail attire requested. Hosted by Malik and Violet Ray. You know what the worst part is? I said, my voice catching. They're serving cocktails in my kitchen, the kitchen where I spent 3 months perfecting the layout, where I insisted on that specific shade of sage green for the cabinets because it reminded me of my grandmother's house. Then let's get it back, Aidan said firmly. All of it. I picked up my pen, hand steady now, as I checked the will attend box on the RSVP card. Yes, I said, let's. As I sealed the response card in its envelope, a strange calm settled over me. They thought they were hosting a housewarming party, but really, they were opening the door to their own undoing. And I would be there to watch it all unfold. You're going to need a killer dress, Zoe said, sprawled across my couch 2 days before the party. Something that says I'm thriving without you, but also I could destroy you with a single phone call. I was knee-deep in old files, surrounding myself with papers that documented every step of my house's creation. I'm more concerned with finding proof that Malik lied during the divorce proceedings. What exactly are we looking for? Zoe sat up, reaching for one of the folders. Anything that shows I was the sole designer and financial contributor. I pulled out a stack of bank statements. Like this, every payment to contractors came from my personal account. My phone lit up with a text from Aidan. Found something interesting in the property records. Coming over now. 20 minutes later, Aidan burst through my door, clutching a manila envelope. His tie was loose, and his usually neat hair was dishevelled. You look like you've seen a ghost, I said. He spread several documents across my coffee table, pushing aside the bank statements. Better. I found a mistake in the deed transfer. Zoe leaned forward. What kind of mistake? The kind that could invalidate Malik's claim to the house. Aidan pointed to a section of fine print. See this? When the deed was transferred during your divorce, it was recorded under an incorrect property description. In English, please, I said, my heart racing. The legal description doesn't match your actual property. It's off by about 30 feet. He looked up at me, eyes bright. This means the transfer might not be legally binding. Holy shit, Zoe whispered. I grabbed the paper, scanning the numbers myself. How did nobody catch this? Because nobody was looking for it, Aidan said. But now that we know, my phone buzzed. A text from Malik. My stomach lurched as I read it aloud. Looking forward to seeing you at the party. Violet's made some changes to the house. Hope you'll appreciate them. Changes? My voice cracked. What changes? Don't let him get to you. Zoe said firmly. That's exactly what he wants. I stood up and walked to my bedroom, pulling open my closet. You're right about one thing, Zoe. I do need a killer dress. That's my girl, she followed me in. What about that red one? No. I pulled out a sleek black dress with architectural lines, the one I'd worn to receive my first major design award. This one. Aidan appeared in the doorway. While you two handle the wardrobe, I'll start preparing the legal documentation. But Anne, we need to be smart about this. What do you mean? At the party, we need to gather intelligence without showing our hand. He loosened his tie further. Watch their interactions, listen to conversations. The more ammunition we have, the stronger our case. And the blueprints, Zoe asked. If, and only if, you can access that hidden compartment without being noticed, Aidan stressed. No unnecessary risks. I nodded, running my hand over the dress's fabric. I designed that pantry. I know every inch of it. There's something else, Aidan said, his expression serious. I did some digging into Violet's background. Her mother, Francesca, is loaded. Old money. She's been bankrolling their lifestyle. Including my house? I felt my blood pressure rising. Most likely. But here's the interesting part. Francesca has a reputation for being extremely particular about her family's image. Any hint of scandal could make her pull her support, I finished, understanding dawning. Zoe grinned. Now that's what I call leverage. I walked back to the living room, picking up the invitation. The gold lettering seemed to mock me less now. So we go to this party. We gather evidence. We find the blueprints. And then, we hit them where it hurts, Aidan said. Legally and socially. But first, Zoe held up my phone. We need to reply to Malik's text. I took the phone, thinking carefully before typing. Looking forward to it. Can't wait to see what you've done with my design. Perfect, Zoe said. Just the right amount of bite. As I hit send, I noticed my hands weren't shaking anymore. For the first time since the divorce, I felt in control. The house I'd poured my soul into wasn't just a building. It was my legacy, my creation. And I was going to take it back. One more thing, Aidan said, gathering his documents. Remember, at the party, you're not the victim. You're the architect who's about to rebuild her life, starting with reclaiming what's rightfully hers. I looked at my reflection in the window, imagining myself in that black dress walking through my front door again. They won't know what hit them. The sound of laughter and clinking glasses drifted through my front door. No, their front door now. I smoothed down my black dress and took a deep breath. Ready? Aidan squeezed my arm reassuringly. As I'll ever be. We stepped inside and my heart clenched. The entryway I'd designed to feel warm and welcoming now felt foreign. Violet had replaced my carefully chosen artwork with generic modern pieces, and the walls were painted a stark white instead of the soft cream I'd selected. Anne, Malik's voice boomed across the foyer. You came. He approached us, champagne glass in hand, looking exactly as I remembered, tall, charming, and completely full of himself. Wouldn't miss it, I said, accepting a glass from a passing server. The place looks different. Violet has excellent taste, he said, glancing around proudly. She's really made it her own. I can see that. I took a sip of champagne to hide my expression. Anne, darling. Violet appeared, wearing a dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. So brave of you to come. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Violet, I nodded. Interesting choice with the wall colour. Oh, that dreary cream had to go. It was so provincial. She linked her arm through Malik's. We're giving the whole house a modern update. In fact, everyone gather round. My stomach dropped as guests congregated in the living room. Violet clinked her glass with a silver spoon. Malik and I have an announcement, she trilled. We're completely renovating the kitchen next month. No offence to the original design, but it's just so basic. I felt Aidan tense beside me. The kitchen had been my masterpiece, inspired by years of studying European architecture. Actually, I spoke up, my voice steady, that kitchen won a regional design award last year. Oh? Violet's smile turned predatory. Well, awards aren't everything, are they? Malik, darling, tell them about our plans. Malik cleared his throat. Yes, well, as the owner of this house, I think it's time for some significant changes. The current design is, let's say, outdated. The room fell silent. Everyone knew I'd designed the house. Outdated? I stepped forward. That kitchen was featured in Architectural Digest 3 months ago. Was it? Violet's voice dripped with false surprise. Must have missed that issue. Anyway, we've already hired a new architect, someone with a more contemporary vision. I felt the room spinning slightly, but then caught sight of the pantry door behind them. The blueprints were still there, waiting. Well, I raised my glass. Here's to new beginnings. Mind if I use the powder room? For old time's sake? Of course, Violet waved vaguely, though we're renovating that too. I slipped away, making my way through the crowd. Instead of turning toward the powder room, I ducked into the kitchen. It was empty. Everyone was still listening to Violet's renovation plans. The pantry door opened silently. At least they hadn't changed the hinges I'd specifically ordered to prevent squeaking. Inside, everything looked the same. I ran my fingers along the back wall, finding the nearly invisible seam. Looking for something. I whirled around. Francesca, Violet's mother, stood in the doorway, elegant in a tailored suit. Mrs. Ramirez, I said, heart pounding. I was just examining the pantry my daughter plans to demolish. She stepped inside, closing the door behind her. Interesting timing. I designed this house, I said simply. Every inch of it. Yes, she said, studying me. I've seen the magazine features. Tell me, Miss Anne, what really brings you here tonight? Before I could answer, the pantry door opened again. Violet stood there, face flushed with champagne and triumph. Mother, what are you doing in here with her? Just chatting about architecture, Francesca said smoothly. Your former sister-in-law has quite the reputation in the field. Former is the key word, Violet snapped. This is my house now, my kitchen, my pantry. Is it? I couldn't help asking. Do you have the deed? Violet's eyes narrowed. Malik handles all that boring paperwork. But make no mistake, everything here belongs to us now. You're just a guest, a rather unwelcome one. I stepped out of the pantry, pausing beside her. We'll see about that. As I walked away, I heard Francesca say quietly, Violet, dear, do try to show some class. I found Aiden by the front door. We need to leave. Now. Did you get them? No, I whispered. But I will. And I just met someone who might be very interested in the truth about her daughter's new house. Outside, the night air cleared my head. I looked up at my beautiful house, now lit up like a stage set for someone else's life. They're going to destroy it, I said. No, Aiden replied firmly. They're going to try, but first they'll have to get through us. You're not going to believe what I found. Aiden burst into my office Monday morning, waving a stack of papers. My latest project designs scattered as he dropped the documents on my desk. Please tell me it's good news, I said, straightening the blueprints for the downtown cultural centre I'd been working on. Better than good. He spread out several documents. Remember how Malik claimed he contributed financially to the house construction? How could I forget? He waved his checkbook around in court like it was proof of ownership. Well, look at this. Aiden pointed to a bank statement. The money he claimed to have invested. It came from a transfer from Violet's account, 3 days before he made the contribution. I leaned forward. What are you saying? I'm saying Malik committed fraud during the divorce proceedings. He presented false evidence about his financial contribution to the house. My hands shook as I examined the documents. How did you get these? Let's just say Violet's previous bank manager owes me a favor. Aiden loosened his tie. But that's not all. Look at the dates on these construction permits. I scanned the papers, my architect's eye catching the discrepancies immediately. These were filed before Malik and I even met. Exactly. You designed and started the approval process for that house while you were single. His name isn't on any of the original documentation. My phone buzzed. A text from Zoe. Turn on the local news. Now. I grabbed the remote for my office TV, flipping to Channel 5. My breath caught as I saw Malik standing at a podium, Violet by his side. "Proud to announce our donation of the property for the new community centre," he was saying. "This house, which I helped design and build," "That lying bastard," I whispered, "will be transformed into a space that serves our entire community," Malik continued, beaming at the cameras. Aidan was already on his phone. "Yes, I need an emergency injunction. Property dispute. Yes. I understand it's unusual." I couldn't tear my eyes from the screen. Violet was nodding along, playing the role of supportive wife perfectly, but something in her expressions seemed off. "Got it," Aidan hung up. "We have a hearing tomorrow morning, but Anne, we need those blueprints. Without them, it's just circumstantial evidence." "They're planning to donate my house?" My voice cracked. "They can't do that. Actually, they can't, not legally. But they're trying to make it impossible for you to fight back without looking like the villain who stopped a community centre from being built." My phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I answered hesitantly. "Ms. Anne," a familiar voice said. "This is Francesca Ramirez." I put the phone on speaker. "Yes?" "I saw my daughter and son-in-law's little press conference. I thought you should know. Violet came to me last week asking for $20 million for this community centre project." Aidan and I exchanged looks. "And?" I prompted. "And I denied her request, which means they're announcing a project they can't actually fund." Francesca's voice was steel. "I don't appreciate being manipulated, especially not by my own daughter." "Mrs. Ramirez, why are you telling me this?" "Because I've seen the architectural magazines featuring your work. That house is art. And I don't support vandalism, social or otherwise." She paused. "Check your email. I'm sending you something that might help." The call ended. Seconds later, my email pinged. I opened the attachment and gasped. "What is it?" Aidan leaned over my shoulder. "Security camera footage from my house, from last night." I played the video, showing Malik and Violet in a heated argument in the kitchen. "I don't care what it takes," Malik was saying. "We need that money. The contractors are asking questions about the payments." "Mother won't budge," Violet snapped, "and we can't sell the house because of that stupid deed issue you created." "Then we donate it. Make it impossible for your mother, or Anne, to fight back without looking terrible." I stopped the video, feeling sick. "They're desperate. They're scared," Aidan corrected, "and desperate people make mistakes. Big ones." My office door opened and Zoe rushed in. "I just saw the news. Please tell me we're not letting them get away with this." "We're not," I said, standing up. "But I need to get into that house one more time, tonight." "Anne," Aidan warned. "They'll be at the press dinner," I cut him off. "The house will be empty. And I still have a key." "That's breaking and entering," he protested. "Not if I can prove I'm still the legal owner." I gathered the documents he'd brought. "Besides, I'm not breaking anything. I'm just going to retrieve my property from my pantry." Zoe grinned. "I'll drive." "This is a terrible idea," Aidan sighed. "I'll be parked around the corner with the engine running. Just be careful." I looked at the TV where they were replaying Malik's smug announcement. "Oh, I will be. But they won't." The house looked different in the darkness, more like the home I remembered. Zoe killed the headlights as we pulled up around the corner. "Security system?" she whispered. "I designed it," I said, punching in the code I'd hardwired years ago. They never changed it. The door opened silently. My heels clicked against the marble flooring as I made my way to the kitchen, Zoe close behind. The moonlight streaming through the windows cast long shadows across the countertops. A car door slammed outside. "Shit!" Zoe hissed. "Someone's here." We ducked behind the kitchen island as voices approached. The front door opened. "Mother, this is completely unnecessary," Violet's voice echoed through the foyer. "The press dinner doesn't start for another hour, which gives us plenty of time to discuss this ridiculous community centre scheme of yours." Francesca's heels clicked across the floor. "Kitchen, now." My heart pounded as they entered the kitchen. From our hiding spot, I could see their reflections in the window. "I don't understand why you're so upset," Violet said. "It's a charitable donation. With money you don't have, for a house you might not legally own." Francesca's voice was sharp. "Do you think I'm stupid?" Violet. Of course not, but I've seen the deed issues, I've seen the original building permits, and I've seen enough of your husband's financial records to know you're both in trouble. Zoe squeezed my arm. We needed to move, but we were trapped. What are you talking about? Violet's voice wavered. The contractors Malik hired for your renovations. They called my office today, demanding payment for work they did months ago, work that was supposed to be paid for with my money. Money I never agreed to give you. That's impossible. Malik says a lot of things, doesn't he? Francesca interrupted. Just like he said he helped design this house? Tell me, did you know your husband can barely read a blueprint? Silence filled the kitchen. I held my breath. I had my own architects review this house, Francesca continued. It's brilliant work. Every detail perfectly planned. The kind of design that takes years of experience. Are you really going to let your husband destroy it for a publicity stunt? It's not a stunt, Violet protested weakly. You need to stop lying. Francesca's voice turned ice cold. To me, to the public, and to yourself. Where did the money really go, Violet? More silence. Mother, please. No, I'm done. Either you tell me the truth right now, or I go directly to the press with what I know. A sob escaped Violet. Malik's been gambling. The contractors, the renovations. It was all a cover. He needed the house as collateral for loans. My hand flew to my mouth. Zoe's eyes widened. And the community centre donation, Francesca pressed. We thought, if we announced it publicly, you'd have to fund it, to save face. The sound of a hand hitting marble made me jump. You thought you could manipulate me, your own mother. We're desperate. The loan sharks are threatening Malik and... Enough. Francesca's voice was final. You have 24 hours to come clean about everything, or I will, starting with calling Anne's lawyer. You wouldn't dare. Try me. I won't have my family's name dragged through the mud because you married a con artist. Footsteps moved toward the door. And Violet, don't bother coming to the press dinner. I'll handle the media myself. The front door slammed. Seconds later, we heard Violet's heels clicking rapidly across the floor, followed by another slam. Zoe and I waited several minutes before emerging from our hiding spot. Holy shit, Zoe breathed. The pantry, I said, moving quickly. Before anyone comes back. The hidden compartment opened easily. Inside, exactly where I'd left them, were the original blueprints and all the documentation. As I pulled them out, something else caught my eye. A small notebook. What's that? Zoe asked. I flipped it open and felt my blood run cold. It was Malik's gambling ledger, complete with dates, amounts, and the names of his bookies. Evidence, I whispered. Let's go. We slipped out the back door just as another car pulled into the driveway. From the shadows, we watched Malik rush inside, looking panicked. Aiden was waiting around the corner, engine running. We jumped in. Did you get them? He asked. I held up the blueprints and the notebook. We got so much more than that. What do you mean? Let's just say, I smiled grimly, we're not the only ones planning to take them down. As we drove away, I watched my house disappear in the rearview mirror. For the first time since this all began, I felt certain I would see it again. This time, on my own terms. This is a disaster, Malik's voice echoed through Aiden's office speakerphone. The contractors are threatening to put liens on the house. I sat quietly in the corner, listening to the conference call Aiden had arranged. Zoe squeezed my hand as Violet's voice joined in. Malik, shut up, she hissed. Mr. Aiden, surely we can reach some arrangement. Well, Aiden leaned back in his chair. That depends on whether you're prepared to be honest about the situation. What situation? Malik asked. We own the house fair and square. Really? Aiden shuffled some papers. Because I have here a rather interesting gambling ledger, several fraudulent loan documents, and proof that you lied about your financial contributions during the divorce proceedings. Silence. That's private property, Malik finally sputtered. Actually, I spoke up, it was found in my house, in a compartment I designed and built, making it my property. Anne, Malik's voice cracked, you're there. She's here, Aidan confirmed, along with her original blueprints, building permits, and a very interesting video provided by your mother-in-law, Violet. Mother? Violet gasped. She wouldn't. Oh, but she did, I said. Right after you tried to manipulate her into funding your fake community centre. The office door opened and Francesca walked in, right on cue. Actually, I'm here too. Mother, please, Violet begged. We can explain. Save it, Francesca cut her off. I've seen enough. The only question now is whether you want to handle this quietly or let it become very, very public. Aidan pulled out a document. We have a proposal. Anne regains full ownership of the house. In exchange, we don't pursue criminal charges for fraud or report Malik's illegal gambling activities to the authorities. You can't prove anything, Malik said weakly. The loan sharks you owe money to might disagree, I replied. Should we call them? More silence. You have 10 minutes to decide, Aidan said. After that, we start making calls. This is blackmail, Violet protested. No, Francesca's voice was steel. This is consequences. You tried to steal a house through fraud and deception. You attempted to manipulate me into funding your schemes, and now you're going to make this right. Or what? Violet challenged. Or I release everything to the press. Your choice. I heard muffled arguing on the other end of the line. Fine, Malik finally said. We'll sign whatever you want. Excellent choice. Aidan pushed a button on his phone. The courier outside your door has the papers. Sign them. Now. You planned this whole thing? Violet sounded defeated. No, I stood up. You planned this the moment you decided to take what wasn't yours. We waited in tense silence until Aidan's phone pinged with photos of the signed documents. Congratulations, Anne, he smiled. The house is yours again. This isn't over, Violet threatened. Oh, but it is, Francesca interrupted. Because if either of you comes near that house again, everything goes public. And Violet, don't bother coming home. Your things will be sent to you. The line went dead. I slumped in my chair, exhausted. I can't believe it's really over. Not quite, Francesca turned to me. Those contractors still need to be paid. Consider it my apology for my daughter's behaviour. She pulled out a checkbook. And perhaps we could discuss some future projects? I've been impressed with your work. Thank you, I managed. Don't thank me, she wrote out the check. Just promise me one thing, don't let them change a single thing about that kitchen. It's magnificent. After she left, Zoe hugged me tight. You did it. We did it, I corrected, looking at Aidan. All of us. Well, he gathered the papers. Shall we go see your house? The drive felt surreal. When we pulled up, the evening sun was hitting the windows just right, making them glow like they used to. I walked up the path, key in hand. Inside, despite Violet's changes, it still felt like home. I ran my hand along the kitchen counter, remembering every decision that went into its design. What are you going to do first? Zoe asked. I looked around at the stark white walls and generic art. Paint, I said firmly. Definitely paint. And then, I smiled, thinking of the blueprints safely tucked away in my bag. Then, I'm going to make it even better than before. Because this time, it's not just a house I designed, it's a house I fought for. Aidan raised an eyebrow. Should I be worried about more secret compartments? Maybe just one or two, I laughed, feeling truly light for the first time in months. After all, you never know when you might need them. The paint fumes are getting to my head, Zoe complained, rolling another stripe of warm cream across the living room wall. But I have to admit, this colour is way better than that stark white Violet chose. I stepped back to admire our progress. 3 days of painting had almost erased every trace of Violet's modern update. My phone buzzed. A text from Aidan. Turn on the news. Now. Oh God, what now? I grabbed the remote. The local news anchor's voice filled the room. In a shocking development, prominent real estate developer Malik Ray has been arrested on charges of fraud and illegal gambling. Zoe dropped her paint roller. Holy shit. The camera cut to footage of Malik being led out of his office in handcuffs, Violet trailing behind him in tears. According to sources, the anchor continued, Mr. Ray had accumulated substantial gambling debts and attempted to use fraudulent property documents as collateral for loans. "Did you know about this?" Zoe asked. "No," I whispered, "but I'm betting Francesca did." As if on cue, my doorbell rang. Francesca stood there, impeccable as always. "May I come in? I believe I owe you an explanation." I led her to the kitchen, now restored to its original glory, and put on coffee. "I assume you've seen the news," she said, accepting a cup. "Did you turn him in?" "Not directly." She stirred her coffee carefully. "I simply made sure certain information reached the right people. The Gambling Commission has been investigating him for months. They just needed a push in the right direction." "And Violet?" "My daughter," Francesca sighed, "is learning some hard lessons about choices and consequences. She's currently in my guest house contemplating her future." The doorbell rang again. This time it was Aidan, clutching a newspaper. "Have you seen—" He stopped short at the sight of Francesca. "Ah, I suppose you have." "Mrs. Ramirez was just explaining her role in recent events," I said. "Speaking of which," Francesca pulled out an envelope. "I have a proposition for you, Anne. My foundation is planning to build a real community centre. We need an architect who understands both beauty and functionality." I opened the envelope. The project specifications made my heart race. "This is ambitious," I said, scanning the details. "Yes, well, unlike my former son-in-law's fake proposal, this one comes with actual funding." She smiled. "And complete creative control." "I'd be honoured," I said. "But why me?" "Because you fought for what was right, not what was easy." She stood up. "The contractors will be here tomorrow to undo any damage done to your house. Consider it part of your commission." After she left, Aidan examined the contract. "This is legitimate and generous." "I can't help feeling a little sorry for Violet," Zoe said, returning to her painting. "Don't," Aidan warned. "The police found evidence she was fully aware of Malik's schemes. She chose her path." My phone buzzed again. A text from Violet. "I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything." I showed it to Aidan and Zoe. "Are you going to respond?" Zoe asked. "Actually, yes," I typed quickly. "I didn't ruin anything. I just took back what was mine. Good luck with your fresh start." "Classy," Aidan nodded. "Now, about these renovation plans." We spread the blueprints across the kitchen island, my original designs plus the new improvements I'd been sketching. "See this?" I pointed to a modification for the back garden. "It's going to be a workspace where I can meet with clients, complete with a view of the city. Perfect for planning that community centre." Zoe grinned. The doorbell rang a third time. This time it was a delivery man with a large package from Francesca. Inside was a framed copy of my house's original blueprint, with a note. "To remind you that the best designs come from the heart, not from deception. Looking forward to our collaboration." I hung it in the entryway, right where Violet's generic art had been. "You know what this calls for?" Zoe disappeared into the kitchen and returned with wine glasses. "A proper housewarming. A real one this time." As we toasted, I looked around at my home, truly mine again. The walls were half-painted, drop cloths covered the floors, and paint supplies were everywhere. But it felt more perfect than when it was pristinely staged for Violet's party. "To karma," Aidan raised his glass. "To justice," Zoe added. "To home," I said softly. "And to new beginnings." My phone buzzed one final time, a news alert. "Local architect to design revolutionary community centre." Below was a quote from Francesca. "We believe in building communities through honesty and vision, not deception and greed." I smiled, thinking of the blueprints for both projects, my restored home and the new centre, waiting on my desk. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about destroying what others have built, but about creating something even better from the ruins they left behind. And this, I gestured to the soaring glass walls of the community centre's main hall, is where local artists can display their work. Francesca nodded approvingly as we walked through the nearly completed building. You've outdone yourself, Anne. The natural light is perfect. Just wait until you see the rooftop garden. I led her toward the elevator. We've incorporated sustainable design elements that... My phone buzzed. A news notification. Malik Ray sentenced to 5 years for fraud. Francesca noticed my expression. You saw? Yes. I pocketed my phone. Zoe texted earlier. She was at the courthouse. Said Violet didn't even show up for the sentencing. My daughter is in Europe attempting to reinvent herself. Francesca's tone was dry. Away from the scandal, as she puts it. The elevator opened to reveal the rooftop garden, my favourite part of the design. Living walls burst with colour, and carefully planned seating areas invited conversation and contemplation. This reminds me of your house, Francesca observed, the way you blend function with beauty. Speaking of which, I pulled out a folder. I have something to show you. Inside were the plans for my next project, converting part of my home into a mentoring space for young architects. Using your experience to help others, she smiled. Perfect karma. Mrs. Ramirez, a contractor jogged up to us. The press is here for the preview tour. Are you ready? Francesca asked me. I straightened my jacket. Lead the way. Downstairs, reporters and photographers filled the entrance hall. Aidan stood among them, giving me a thumbs up. He'd helped draft all the contracts for this project, ensuring everything was transparent and legitimate, the opposite of Malik's scheme. Ladies and gentlemen, Francesca addressed the crowd. Welcome to the Future Arts Community Centre. Our architect, Anne, will guide you through the space. As I led the tour, explaining each carefully designed element, I caught glimpses of my own journey in the building's features. The resilient materials, the thoughtful spaces, the way light and shadow played together, all of it reflected not just architectural principles, but life lessons. And finally, I said, reaching the rooftop, this garden represents our commitment to growth and renewal. Ms. Anne, a reporter raised her hand. Is it true this project was born from the scandal involving your ex-husband's fraudulent community centre proposal? I met Francesca's eye across the crowd. This project was born from the belief that good design, like good character, stands the test of time. What others intended for deception, we've transformed into something authentic. After the tour, Aidan joined me by the living wall. Quite a difference from that press conference where Malik announced his fake donation. Speaking of differences, I checked my watch. I need to get home. The students will be arriving soon. Still can't believe you're teaching now, too, he grinned. More like sharing battle stories, I laughed. Design tips and legal advice, thanks to you. At home, my newly renovated workspace was ready for its first mentoring session. The original blueprint still hung in the entryway, but now it was joined by photos of the community centre's construction. A reminder that something beautiful can rise from the ashes of betrayal. The doorbell rang. Zoe arrived with coffee for everyone, followed by 5 eager architecture students. Welcome, I said, leading them to the workspace overlooking the city. Today we're going to talk about designing with purpose and how every choice you make tells a story. Is it true, one student asked, that you designed this house and the new community centre? Yes, I smiled, and they're both part of the same lesson. When someone tries to take what you've built, build something even better. Even after everything that happened with your ex-husband? Another student pressed. Especially after that. I pulled out my sketching materials. Because architecture isn't just about buildings, it's about creating spaces where truth and beauty can thrive. As the session began, I caught sight of my reflection in the window. Behind me, students bent over their drawings, Zoe arranged coffee cups, and the city stretched out below. A canvas of endless possibilities. My phone buzzed one last time, a message from Francesca. Board approved your proposal for the Youth Arts programme at the centre. Ready when you are. I texted back, already designing it in my head. Looking around at my restored home, now filled with new purpose and energy, I realised something profound. Sometimes losing what you love leads you to build something even more meaningful. Not just with bricks and mortar, but with wisdom, strength, and the power of second chances. All right, I turn to my students. Let's talk about building foundations that last.
The sound of my father's fist slamming against the mahogany dining table made the crystal glasses dance. I'd seen him angry before, but this was different. This was desperation. My name is Simone, and I was about to discover just how far my family would go to protect their golden child. What do you mean you sold the house? I struggled to keep my voice steady, gripping the back of my chair until my knuckles turned white. The home I'd grown up in, where Mom had taught me to bake cookies, where Lexi and I had shared secrets late into the night. All of it gone without a single word of warning. Lincoln needed help, Dad said, as if that explained everything. It always came down to Lincoln. The gambling debts were getting out of hand. The sharks were threatening him. So, you sold our home? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Without talking to any of us? Mom stood in the corner, wringing her hands the way she always did when things got tense. Honey, your father did what he thought was best. Best? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Was it best when he emptied my college fund for Lincoln's rehab? Or when he mortgaged the house the first time to pay off Lincoln's credit card debt? That's enough! Dad's voice boomed through the room. Your brother has problems, and the rest of us have to pay for them. I shot back. Where are we supposed to live now? The silence that followed made my stomach drop. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes, and Mom suddenly became very interested in the pattern on the wallpaper. It was Lexi who finally spoke up from her spot by the window. They want you to ask Austin, she said quietly. The pieces clicked into place. Of course, my wealthy fiancé would be the perfect solution to their problems. Again, you want me to beg my fiancé to house my entire family? The words tasted bitter in my mouth. Because Lincoln gambled away everything we had? Not beg, Dad said, his voice softening in that manipulative way I'd grown to recognize. Just explain the situation. Austin loves you. He'll understand. Where is Lincoln now? I demanded. More silence. He's at a poker game, Lexi admitted, ignoring Dad's warning glare. I grabbed my purse from the table. Unbelievable. He's out there gambling while we're discussing being homeless because of him. Simone, please. Mom finally stepped forward, reaching for my arm. We need to stick together as a family. Family? I pulled away from her touch. A family doesn't do this to each other. A family doesn't expect one child to clean up another's mess over and over again. You've always been the strong one, Dad said, as if it were a compliment rather than the burden it had become. Lincoln needs help. And what about what I need? My voice cracked. What about Lexi? What about Mom? When do we matter as much as Lincoln does? The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. Mom hurried to answer it, probably grateful for the interruption. A moment later, Austin's voice carried from the hallway, cheerful and oblivious to the drama he was walking into. There's my beautiful fiancé. He entered the dining room with a bright smile that quickly faded as he read the room. Is everything okay? Dad straightened up, switching on his charm like a light. Austin, son, we were just discussing some family matters. Don't. I held up my hand, stopping him. Don't you dare try to manipulate this situation right now. Austin moved closer to me, concern etched on his face. Simone, what's going on? I looked at my father, then my mother, daring them to tell him themselves. When neither spoke, I turned to Austin. I'll tell you everything, but not here. Can we go somewhere else? Of course, he said, wrapping an arm around my shoulders. As we headed for the door, Dad called out, Simone, think about what you're doing. We're family. I paused in the doorway, not turning around. You're right, Dad. We are family. and that's exactly why this hurts so much. Walking to Austin's car, I already knew I wouldn't ask him to house my family. I wouldn't drag him into this mess. Instead, a different plan was forming in my mind, one that would finally force my family to face the consequences of their actions. For the first time in my life, I was going to put myself first, and if that meant burning bridges, well, my family had already lit the match. Austin's penthouse offered a perfect view of the city, but I barely noticed it as I paced back and forth across his living room. He sat on the leather couch, processing everything I'd just told him about my family's situation. "I'll have my realtor start looking for a place right away," he said, reaching for his phone. "Something with enough bedrooms for everyone." "No." I stopped pacing. "I didn't tell you this because I want your help." He looked confused. "Then why?" "Because I needed you to understand why I can't marry you." The words hung in the air between us. Austin's face went through a range of emotions: shock, hurt, confusion. "What are you talking about? If this is about your family's financial situation." "It's about everything." I sat down across from him. "I can't drag you into this mess, and I can't keep being the person everyone depends on to fix everything. We can work through this together," he insisted, reaching for my hand. "That's what marriage is about." I pulled away, hating myself for what I was about to do. "I need to handle this on my own. I need space." "Space?" He stood up, running his hands through his hair. "Simone, we're getting married in 3 months." My phone buzzed with a text. It was Terrence, Austin's lawyer, and my new secret ally. "Documents ready. Meeting tomorrow at 10. I quickly typed back yes before Austin could see. "I know the timing is terrible," I said, slipping my phone away. "But I need to figure out who I am without everyone else's expectations weighing me down." "This isn't like you," Austin said, his voice softening. "You're upset about your family. Let's take some time to think this through." The doorbell interrupted us. Austin checked his phone. "That's probably the surprise I mentioned. Wait here." Before I could protest, he disappeared down the hallway. I used the moment alone to send another quick text to Terrence. "Remember, absolute discretion. Austin can't know." Austin returned carrying a large white box. "I know it's not the right time, but..." He placed it on the coffee table. "It's your wedding dress. I had it custom made in Paris." My throat tightened as I stared at the box. "Austin, just look at it," he pleaded. "Maybe it will help you remember why we're perfect together." The doorbell rang again. This time, it was Lexi's familiar pattern of rings. I'd asked her to come up with an emergency if I wasn't home in an hour. "I have to go," I said, grabbing my purse. "Lexi needs me." "Simone, wait," Austin called after me, but I was already heading for the door. Lexi was waiting in the hallway, her eyes wide with real panic. "Lincoln's in trouble again." We took the elevator down in silence. Once in my car, Lexi burst out. "He lost another $50,000 tonight. Dad's threatening to sell Mom's antique jewelry collection." "Of course he is," I muttered, gripping the steering wheel tighter. "Where's Lincoln now?" "Passed out at Tommy's bar, the usual." I made a U-turn, heading toward the familiar dive bar. "Did you know about the house before today?" Lexi shifted uncomfortably. "I overheard Dad on the phone last week. I wanted to tell you, but Dad told you not to." She nodded miserably. "I'm sorry, Simone. I should have warned you." We pulled up to Tommy's. Through the grimy windows, I could see Lincoln slumped over the bar, exactly where Lexi said he'd be. "I'm done enabling him," I announced, "and I'm done letting Dad manipulate us all." "What are you gonna do?" I thought about the meeting with Terrence tomorrow, about the property I'd found that was perfect for my plan. "I'm going to teach them all a lesson about consequences." "Should I be worried?" Lexi asked, studying my face. Just trust me, and whatever happens in the next few weeks, remember that I love you. We got out of the car and headed into the bar. The familiar smell of stale beer and broken dreams hit me as we approached Lincoln's unconscious form. "Wake up," I said, shaking his shoulder roughly. "Time to go home, big brother." He stirred, blinking at me with bloodshot eyes. "Simone, I really messed up this time." "Yeah, you did." I helped him stand, letting him lean on me. "But don't worry, I'm gonna fix everything." As we half-carried Lincoln to the car, I thought about the wedding dress waiting in Austin's penthouse, about the meeting with Terrence tomorrow, about the look on Dad's face when he realized he couldn't control me anymore. Sometimes the only way to save your family is to destroy everything they think they know about you. The charity gala was in full swing when I arrived, my black dress a stark contrast to the sea of colorful gowns around me. Austin stood near the bar, checking his phone every few minutes, probably looking for me. I'd been avoiding his calls for 3 days since the wedding dress incident. "There you are." Mom appeared beside me, relief evident in her voice. "Austin's been asking about you. He seems worried." "I'm sure he is." I accepted a champagne flute from a passing waiter. "Have you and Dad found a new place to live yet?" Mom's smile faltered. "We're working on it. Your father thinks if you just talk to Austin—" "Stop." I drained half my glass. "I'm not having this conversation here." "Simone." Austin spotted us and made his way over. "I've been trying to reach you." "I've been busy." I forced a smile, touching his arm in a way that would look affectionate to anyone watching. "Can we talk privately?" Mom took the hint and disappeared into the crowd. Austin led me to a quiet corner behind a massive flower arrangement. "I spoke to Terrence today," he said, straightening his bow tie. "He mentioned you had a meeting with him." My heart skipped. "Did he say what about?" "No, he was oddly evasive. Is everything okay?" "Just sorting out some personal matters." I glanced around the room, spotting Lexi entering with her date. "Nothing for you to worry about." "Nothing to worry about?" Austin's voice rose slightly. "You've been avoiding me. You won't talk about the wedding, and now you're meeting with my lawyer in secret?" Before I could respond, Lincoln stumbled into our corner, reeking of whiskey. "Baby sister and the rich boyfriend having a nice chat?" "Lincoln," I hissed, "you're not supposed to be here." "Dad got me an invitation." He grinned sloppily. "Said I should network, make some connections, maybe find someone willing to stake me in the next big game." Austin's expression hardened. "I think you've had enough to drink. What's it to you?" Lincoln stepped closer to Austin. "Think you're better than me because you've got money? Because you're marrying my sister?" "Lincoln," Lexi appeared, grabbing our brother's arm. "Dad's looking for you." "Of course he is." Lincoln laughed bitterly, always keeping tabs on the family disappointment. As Lexi led Lincoln away, Austin turned to me. "This has to stop, Simone. Your brother needs professional help, not more enablers." "I know." I touched his cheek gently, knowing it would be the last time. "You're a good man, Austin. Better than I deserve." "What does that mean?" "It means I can't marry you." I slipped off my engagement ring and pressed it into his palm. "I'm sorry." His fingers closed around the ring. "Is this because of what happened with your family? We can work through this?" "No, we can't." I stepped back. "Because I don't love you. I never did. I just loved the security you represented." The hurt in his eyes was almost unbearable, but I forced myself to continue. "You deserve someone who loves you for you, not for what you can provide." "You're lying." He reached for me. "I know you, Simone. This isn't you speaking. It's the stress of everything with your family. The woman you think you know doesn't exist." I turned away before he could see my tears. "She never did." I walked away, feeling his eyes on my back. Near the entrance, I ran into Lexi, who had managed to get Lincoln into a taxi. "That looked intense," she said, studying my face. "Are you okay?" I ended it with Austin. "What?" She grabbed my arm. "Simone, what are you doing? First the meeting with the lawyer, now this." "Trust me," I whispered. "Everything's going according to plan." "What plan? You're starting to scare me." Before I could answer, Dad appeared. "There you are. Austin looks upset. What did you say to him?" "Nothing he didn't need to hear." I met Dad's gaze steadily. "By the way, giving Lincoln an invitation tonight? Really smart move. Nothing says charity like a drunk gambling addict making scenes at formal events." "Your brother is trying," Dad defended. "He just needs support." "No, what he needs is consequences. What we all need are consequences." I smiled coldly. "And trust me, they're coming." I left Dad standing there, confusion and concern warring on his face. Outside, the night air felt clean and sharp in my lungs. My phone buzzed with a text from Terrence. "Property transfer complete. You're now the official owner." I texted back, "Perfect. Start drafting the eviction notices." Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for the people you love is force them to face reality, even if it means becoming the villain in their story. Sign here and here. Terrence pointed to the marked lines on the document, and initial at the bottom of each page. My hand was steady as I signed the papers that would give me complete ownership of the property. A modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. All mine. "What about the eviction notices?" I asked, sliding the paperwork back across his desk. "They'll be ready tomorrow." Terrence leaned back in his chair. "Are you sure about this, Simone? Once we serve these notices, there's no going back." "I'm sure." I stood up, smoothing my skirt. "Just make sure they're delivered to my parents' temporary address and Lincoln's apartment on the same day." My phone buzzed. Mom's third call of the morning. I declined it and texted instead. "Coming for dinner tonight. Austin asked about you yesterday," Terrence said as he walked me to the door. "He seems worried." "He'll get over it." I forced a smile. "Thank you for keeping this between us." The drive to my parents' temporary rental took longer than expected. By the time I arrived, Mom was already setting the table for dinner. The rental was small, cramped, a stark contrast to our old family home. "Finally," Mom hugged me tight. "We've barely seen you since the gala. Is everything okay with Austin?" "Where's Lincoln?" I deflected, noticing the extra place setting. "He's coming," Dad called from the kitchen. "Said he has good news." Lexi emerged from the guest room, giving me a knowing look. "Did you finish your meeting?" "All done." I helped Mom carry dishes to the table. "Everything's falling into place." The doorbell rang, and Lincoln burst in with unusual energy. "Family, your problems are solved." "What do you mean?" Dad asked, bringing in the last dish. Lincoln pulled out a chair, grinning. "I found us a house. Well, technically, I found a high-stakes game. Guy's willing to put up his house against my bet." The room went silent. Mom dropped her fork. "No." I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. "Absolutely not." "Hear me out," Lincoln pleaded. "This guy's desperate. His house is worth way more than what he's asking. It's a sure thing." "Like the last sure thing?" Lexi snapped. "Or the one before that." "This is different." "Nothing's different." I slammed my hands on the table. "You're still gambling, still expecting everyone else to clean up your mess when you lose." "Simone," Dad warned, "your brother is trying to help." "Help?" I laughed harshly. "Is that what you call it? Because from where I'm standing, he's the reason we're all crammed into this rental in the first place." "That's enough!" Mom's voice cracked like a whip. "We're family. We support each other." "Support?" I turned to her. "Was it supporting when Dad sold our home without telling us? When he emptied our college funds? When he—" "I said that's enough." Dad stood up. Everything I've done has been for this family. No, I corrected him. Everything you've done has been for Lincoln. The rest of us just have to live with the consequences. Lincoln's face darkened. You think you're so perfect? At least I'm not the one using my fiancé for his money. Used, I corrected quietly. Past tense. I broke up with Austin. You what? Mom gasped. But the wedding plans? The house? I have my own plans now. I grabbed my purse. And trust me, you'll all know about them soon enough. As I headed for the door, I heard shuffling behind the thin walls of Lincoln's room. Curious, I pressed my ear against it while everyone else argued in the dining room. Yeah, I know I owe you. Lincoln's voice came through faintly. He must have slipped away during the argument. Just give me until Friday. I've got a sure thing lined up. I'd heard enough. Back in the dining room, Lexi caught my eye. Another game? I nodded. Friday. What are we going to do? We're not going to do anything. I squeezed her hand. Just be ready for what happens next. Dad approached, his face stern. Simone, we need to talk about Austin. No, we don't. I opened the front door, but we will be talking soon about everything. As I drove home, my phone lit up with a text from Terrence. Eviction notices ready for delivery tomorrow morning. Last chance to change your mind. I pulled over and typed my response, do it. Then I sent a message to Lexi. Whatever happens tomorrow, remember I love you, and I'm doing this for all of us. The city lights blurred through my windshield. Or maybe it was just the tears I refused to let fall. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, my family would learn that actions have consequences, and some bridges have to burn for new ones to be built. The pounding on my apartment door started at 7 a.m. I knew who it was before I even checked the peephole. Austin never was good at handling rejection. I know you're in there, Simone. His voice carried through the door. We need to talk. I opened the door still in my pajamas. There's nothing to talk about. He pushed past me into the apartment, waving a stack of papers. Really? Then explain these eviction notices Terrence just told me about. You went through my private legal documents? Terrence came to me because he's worried about you. Austin ran a hand through his disheveled hair. What are you doing, Simone? Evicting your own family? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Mom's ringtone. I let it go to voicemail. They deserve it, I said finally. Listen to yourself. Austin grabbed my shoulders. This isn't you. The Simone I know would never. The Simone you know is gone. I pulled away from him. She died the moment she realized her entire life was built around fixing other people's mistakes. My phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Lexi. Mom's crying. Dad's threatening to call lawyers. Lincoln's missing. Of course he is, I muttered. What? Nothing. I turned back to Austin. You should go. Not until you explain what's really going on. He sat on my couch, making himself comfortable. I've got all day. Another text from Lexi. Found Lincoln. He's at Tommy's bar again. Says he lost everything in last night's game. Damn it, Lincoln, I whispered. Talk to me, Austin pleaded. Whatever's going on, we can fix it together. The word fix triggered something in me. That's exactly the problem. Everyone's always trying to fix things. Dad fixes Lincoln's mistakes by sacrificing everyone else. Mom fixes the family's image by pretending everything's fine. You try to fix me by throwing money at my problems. Is that what you think I do? It's what everyone does. I paced the room. Nobody ever faces consequences. Nobody ever has to deal with their own mess. Well, guess what? That ends today. My phone rang again, Dad this time. I answered on speaker, letting Austin hear. What the hell is this eviction notice? Dad's voice boomed through the speaker. Exactly what it looks like. I kept my voice steady. You have 30 days to vacate the rental property. Property? What property? The one I bought, with my own money, the one you're currently living in. Silence then. You bought the rental? Through a holding company, yes. I've owned it for weeks. I met Austin's shocked gaze. Surprise! This is insane, Dad exploded. We're your family. Yes, you are. And it's time you learned that actions have consequences. I gripped the phone tighter, just like you taught me when you sold our home without warning. Your brother needed... Lincoln needs help, not enablers, I shouted. And I need you all to understand what it feels like to have your security ripped away by someone you trust. I hung up before he could respond. Austin stared at me, his expression unreadable. Now you know, I said quietly. The real me, the angry, vengeful me. Still want to fix this? He stood slowly. You're right. I don't know you at all. No, you don't. But I understand why you're doing this. He moved toward the door. Just, don't let revenge cost you everything you care about. After he left, I checked my messages. 5 missed calls from Mom, 3 from Dad, and a single text from Lincoln. This is low, even for you, sis. My phone buzzed with a new message from Lexi. Just saw the notice. Meeting at Mom and Dad's tonight. Please come. Please explain. I typed back. I'll be there. Time to face the music. Looking out my window at the city below, I thought about Austin's words. Was revenge worth the cost? The answer came in another text, this time from Terrence. Lincoln just left my office. He's looking for loans to cover new gambling debts. Over $100,000 this time. I straightened my shoulders and grabbed my car keys. Tonight, my family would learn that love sometimes means making hard choices. Sometimes it means being the bad guy. And sometimes it means burning everything down to build something better from the ashes. The tension in the rental house was thick enough to cut with a knife. Mom sat rigid on the couch, her eyes red from crying. Dad paced the small living room while Lexi perched on the armrest, watching me with a mixture of concern and confusion. Lincoln was conspicuously absent. Where's Lincoln? I asked, breaking the silence. Gambling away what's left of our family, probably, Lexi muttered. Dad stopped pacing. This isn't about your brother. This is about you trying to make your own family homeless. Like you made us homeless when you sold our house, I countered. That was different. How? I stepped closer to him. How was it different, Dad? Because you did it for Lincoln? Because you decided his gambling debts were more important than our stability? I did what I had to do to protect this family. Protect? I laughed bitterly. Is that what you call enabling Lincoln's addiction? Throwing away everything we worked for? Please, Mom stood up, hands trembling. We can work this out. We're family. The front door slammed open, and Lincoln stumbled in, reeking of alcohol. Family? Is that what we're calling it now? You're drunk, Lexi said, standing up. And you're all idiots. Lincoln swayed slightly. Did you know our perfect sister here has been planning this for weeks, playing us all like chess pieces? Dad turned to me. What's he talking about? Tell them, Simone, Lincoln sneered. Tell them how you broke Austin's heart to get your revenge, how you used his lawyer to buy this place right under our noses. Is that true? Mom whispered. Before I could answer, another figure appeared in the doorway. Austin. It's all true, he said quietly. She orchestrated everything. The room fell silent. I straightened my spine, facing them all. Yes, I did. I bought this house knowing you'd need a place to stay after Dad sold our home. I broke off my engagement because I refused to let Austin fix our family's problems. And now I'm evicting you because someone needs to show Lincoln that actions have consequences. By punishing all of us, Dad roared. You punished all of us first, I shouted back. Every time you cleaned up Lincoln's messes, every time you sacrificed our security for his addiction, you punished us. I lost everything tonight, Lincoln slurred. Every penny? Good. I spun toward him. Maybe now you'll hit rock bottom and actually get help. Simone, Austin stepped forward. This isn't the way. Stay out of this. Lincoln lunged at Austin suddenly. This is all your fault. If you hadn't helped her. Lincoln, no! Lexi screamed. But Lincoln was already swinging. Austin dodged the clumsy punch, and Lincoln crashed into the coffee table, shattering Mom's favorite vase. Stop it, Mom cried. Please, just stop. Dad tried to grab Lincoln, but he shoved him away. Don't touch me. You did this. All of you. Always judging me. Always looking down on me. Looking down? I stepped between him and Austin. We've spent years looking up at you from the bottom of the hole you keep dragging us into. I'm your brother. Lincoln's voice cracked. Then start acting like it. I pulled out my phone and showed him Terrence's message about the new gambling debts. $100,000, Lincoln. When does it end? The room went deadly quiet. Mom sank back onto the couch. Dad's face turned ashen, and Lexi covered her mouth in shock. You're lying, Dad whispered. Ask him, I challenged. Ask your golden child what he's been up to tonight. Lincoln's face crumpled. I can fix this. No, I said firmly. You can't. None of us can fix this anymore. That's the point. I turned to face my family, tears finally breaking free. The eviction stands. You have 30 days. After that, you'll have to figure out your own solutions, just like I did. Simone, please. Mom reached for me. I stepped back. I love you all. That's why I'm doing this. Because sometimes love means making impossible choices. As I walked toward the door, Austin caught my arm. Let me help. No. I pulled away gently. This is my family's rock bottom. We need to hit it without anyone cushioning the fall. Lexi followed me out. What happens now? I hugged her tight. Now we wait and hope that sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself again. Behind us, I could hear Mom crying, Dad trying to calm Lincoln down, and Austin's quiet footsteps as he left through the back door. Sometimes being strong means being cruel, and sometimes the hardest person to forgive isn't the one who hurt you, but the one who taught you how to hurt back. 3 weeks after serving the eviction notices, I sat across from Terrence in his office, staring at the documents he'd just handed me. Lincoln took out loans in your father's name, he explained grimly. Used forged signatures. The banks are pressing charges. My hands shook as I read the details. How much? Close to $500,000, total. Terrence leaned back. Your father could face charges too, if they can prove he knew about the forgeries. A knock at the door interrupted us. Austin walked in, stopping short when he saw me. Sorry, he said. I didn't know. Stay, I said quietly. You should hear this too. As Terrence explained the situation, my phone buzzed with a text from Lexi. Mom's in the hospital, anxiety attack, come quick. I have to go. I stood abruptly. My mom, I'll drive you, Austin offered. The ride to the hospital was tense. Austin broke the silence first. Your brother disappeared last night. Police are looking for him. Of course he ran. I pressed my forehead against the cool window. He always runs. At the hospital, we found Dad pacing outside Mom's room while Lexi sat nearby, her eyes red from crying. How is she? I asked. Sedated, Dad answered, his voice hollow. The doctor says it's stress-induced. You mean Lincoln-induced, I corrected. Dad's face crumpled. I knew about the loans. I knew, and I covered for him because Because, because that's what you always do, I finished. Your father's facing criminal charges, Austin said quietly. The banks won't show mercy this time. Dad sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. I thought I was protecting him. All these years, I thought. You weren't protecting anyone. Lexi stood up. You were just teaching Lincoln that he never had to face consequences, teaching us that his problems mattered more than our lives. A nurse emerged from Mom's room. She's asking for you, Mr. Reynolds. As Dad went in, my phone rang, an unknown number. I answered on speaker. Simone? Lincoln's voice was shaky. I messed up. I messed up so bad. Where are you? I demanded. I can't fix this anymore. He was crying now. Tell Mom and Dad I'm sorry. Tell them, Lincoln, don't you dare. But the line went dead. Austin was already on his phone. I'll call the police, have them trace the number. Lexi grabbed my arm. You don't think he'd... I don't know. I pulled her into a hug. I don't know anything anymore. Mom's door opened, and Dad emerged looking years older. He called? I nodded. He's sorry, that's all he said. Sorry doesn't fix this, Dad's voice broke. Nothing fixes this. Maybe that's the point, Austin said suddenly. Maybe nothing's supposed to fix it. Maybe it's supposed to stay broken until you all learn how to rebuild properly. A doctor approached with papers for Dad to sign. As he walked away, Lexi turned to me. The eviction's in a week, she said. They have nowhere to go. Yes, they do. I took a deep breath. The house I bought? It's theirs. What? Austin and Lexi spoke simultaneously. I'm signing it over to Mom. Only Mom. I met their shocked expressions. Dad and Lincoln aren't allowed to live there. That's the condition. Mom needs stability, and Lexi needs a home. But Dad needs to face what he's done. Your mother won't accept, Austin started. She will. I watched Dad returning with the signed papers, because she finally understands what enabling has cost this family. Dad overheard the last part. You're right. He turned to me, tears in his eyes. You were right about everything. I failed you all by trying to protect Lincoln from his own choices. Dad, my voice wavered. No, let me finish. He straightened his shoulders. I'm turning myself into the police, going to tell them everything about the loans, the forgeries. It's time I faced my own consequences. Lexi gasped. But you could go to jail. Better me than Lincoln. Dad looked at each of us. I taught him to run from consequences. Maybe it's time I taught him something different. My phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number. Goodbye, sis. I'm sorry I couldn't be the brother you deserved. As I showed the message to the others, a police officer appeared in the hallway, heading straight for us with a grim expression. Sometimes rock bottom has a basement, and sometimes the only way out is to stop digging and start climbing, even if it means leaving someone behind. The police found Lincoln's car abandoned at River Bridge, his wallet and phone on the passenger seat. No note, no body, just empty bottles and gambling receipts scattered across the back seat. He's alive, I told Mom as she sat in her new kitchen, hands wrapped around a cup of tea. Lincoln's too selfish to die. He's just running again. She nodded slowly, looking smaller somehow in the morning light. Your father's sentencing is tomorrow. I know. I watched Lexi arranging flowers in their new living room. Will you go? No. Mom's voice was firm. He needs to face this alone, just like Lincoln needs to face whatever's coming for him. The doorbell rang. Austin stood on the porch, holding a familiar white box. Your wedding dress, he said, offering it to me. I thought you might want to return it. Keep it. I stepped outside, closing the door behind me. Give it to someone who deserves your love. I've been thinking about what you said. He set the box down. About fixing things. You were right. I tried to fix everything with money because it was easier than facing real problems. We all did things the easy way. I sat on the porch steps until the easy way destroyed us. The police have a lead on Lincoln, Austin said, joining me. Someone spotted him at a bus station in Nevada. Let him run. I watched a family walking their dog across the street. He'll come back when he's ready to face what he's done, or he won't. And your dad? 5 years, minimum. I blinked back tears. The judge might show leniency since he confessed, but the banks want to make an example of him. The front door opened and Lexi came out. Mom's asking for you, Simone. She wants to talk about selling her jewelry collection to pay for therapy. That's my cue. I stood up, turning to Austin. Thank you for everything. Will you be okay? His question held more meaning than just the words. Eventually, I managed a small smile. We all will be, just differently than before. Inside, Mom had spread her jewelry across the kitchen table. Help me decide what to keep and what to sell. I picked up her wedding ring. This should be first to go. Already done. She touched her bare finger. Sold it yesterday. Used the money to hire a divorce lawyer. Lexi gasped. Mom, it's time. Mom straightened her shoulders. Time to stop being victims of the men in this family. Time to build something new. Together, I added, squeezing her hand. Together, she agreed. But first, we need to talk about the house. Mom, I told you. No, listen. She pulled out a document. I want to put it in all 3 of our names. You, me, and Lexi. Equal ownership, equal responsibility. But what if Lincoln comes back? Lexi asked. Or when Dad gets out. Then they'll find 3 strong women who finally learned to say no. Mom's voice was steady. Who learned that love doesn't mean sacrifice. Sometimes it means standing firm. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I'm alive, getting help, real help this time. Don't look for me. I showed it to Mom and Lexi. No one spoke for a long moment. Finally, Mom broke the silence. Good. Let him find his way back on his own terms, or not at all. What do we do now? Lexi asked. I looked around the kitchen, at Mom's determined face, at Lexi's hopeful eyes, at the jewelry scattered across the table like pieces of our old life ready to be transformed into something new. Now we live, I said, not for Dad's approval or Lincoln's needs or anyone else's expectations, just for us. Through the window, I watched Austin drive away, the wedding dress box still sitting on the porch like a reminder of paths not taken. Some might call it a waste. The dress, the relationship, the years spent trying to fix what was permanently broken. But as I sat with Mom and Lexi, sorting through jewelry and memories, making plans for a future we'd build together, I realized something important. Sometimes the happiest endings don't look anything like what you imagined. Sometimes they look like 3 women at a kitchen table, learning to trust each other again, learning to trust themselves. And sometimes, just sometimes, they look like finally being free. I love you both, I said quietly. We love you too. They answered in unison. Outside, the sun set on our new beginning, painting the sky in colors of hope and possibility. We had lost so much, our old home, our illusions, the men we thought we needed, but we had found something better, ourselves, and that was worth everything.
I never imagined my 35th birthday would be the day my marriage imploded in front of everyone I loved. But there I stood in our pristine living room, watching my husband of 12 years hand a velvet jewelry box to another woman. I'm Savannah, and until that moment, I thought I had it all figured out. The perfect house in the suburbs, the successful husband, the enviable life that made my Instagram followers swoon. Funny how quickly perfection can shatter. Trevor, honey, what's that? I asked, my voice steady despite the champagne glass trembling in my hand. The party chatter died instantly. My husband froze, the box suspended between him and Caroline, his work colleague, who'd shown up uninvited to my birthday gathering. Her perfectly manicured fingers were already reaching for it. "It's just a small token of appreciation," Trevor stammered, his face flushing, "for all her help with the Anderson account." My sister Simone stepped closer to me, her hand finding my shoulder. "On your wife's birthday?" she asked, her tone sharp enough to cut glass. Caroline opened the box, and there it was, the vintage sapphire necklace I'd pointed out to Trevor in the antique store last month. "It's gorgeous," she breathed, already lifting it from its velvet nest. "That's quite a token," my brother Riley commented from across the room, setting his drink down with a deliberate thud. I watched Caroline's triumphant smile, Trevor's guilty fidgeting, and the horrified expressions of our gathered friends and family. The room felt like it was spinning, but something inside me snapped into crystal clear focus. "Mom," I called out, my voice surprisingly calm, "would you mind getting that envelope from my purse, the one with the red tab?" My mother Ivy hurried to comply, confusion etched on her face. The silence in the room was deafening. "Since we're exchanging gifts," I continued, accepting the envelope from my mother, "I have something for you too, Trevor." He looked relieved, probably thinking I was about to save face and smooth things over, like I always did. I'd spent years being the perfect wife, making excuses for his late nights and business trips, cleaning up his messes. Not this time. I pulled out the document and held it out to him. "It's the deed to our house. Notice anything interesting about it?" Trevor took it, his hands shaking slightly. I watched as his eyes scanned the paper, then widened in recognition. "That's right," I said, addressing our audience as much as him. "The house is in my name only, always has been. My inheritance from Grandma went into the down payment, remember?" Caroline's hand dropped from the necklace. My father Mark stepped forward, his face thunderous. "Trevor, what the hell is going on here?" "Savannah, baby, let's talk about this privately," Trevor pleaded, reaching for my arm. I stepped back. "No need. I think everything's pretty clear now. You can keep the necklace, Caroline. But you should know, he promised me that same one last month." "I can explain," Trevor started, but Simone cut him off. "Explain what? How you're giving expensive jewelry to another woman at your wife's birthday party?" Her voice dripped with disgust. "You have until tomorrow evening to pack your things," I announced, amazed at how steady my voice remained. "I've already called a lawyer." The room erupted in chaos. My mother burst into tears, my father started shouting, and Kylie, my best friend, was already on her phone, probably calling her realtor husband for advice. "You can't do this," Trevor protested weakly. "Actually, I can, and I am." I turned to address our guests. "Thank you all for coming. I'm sorry the party's ending early, but I think we've had enough excitement for one evening." As people began filing out, offering hugs and whispered support, I caught Caroline trying to slip away. "Oh, and Caroline? That Anderson account you helped with? I have copies of all the paperwork. Might want to think about that before you wear that necklace to the office." Her face went pale, and she practically ran for the door. Later that night, after everyone had gone and Trevor had retreated to the guest room, Simone sat with me on the back porch. "How long have you known?" she asked softly. I watched the ice melt in my untouched birthday cocktail. "About the affair? 3 months? About the creative accounting on his business reports? 2 weeks. Sometimes the universe hands you exactly what you need, exactly when you need it." "And the house deed?" I smiled for the first time that evening. "Let's just say Grandma taught me more than how to make her famous apple pie. She always said to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst." "What happens now?" Simone asked. I took a deep breath of the cool night air. Now I stop being the perfect wife and start being me again, whatever that means. The morning after my birthday disaster, I woke up to 37 missed calls and what felt like the entire neighborhood watching our house. Trevor had already left, taking only a small suitcase and his guilty conscience with him. "You've started a war," Riley declared, barging into my kitchen without knocking. He was still wearing his running gear, sweat beading on his forehead. "Dad's furious." "Good morning to you too," I muttered, clutching my coffee mug like a lifeline. "And since when does Dad take Trevor's side?" "Since Mom spent all night crying about how this will affect her garden club reputation." Riley grabbed an apple from my fruit bowl. "You know how he gets when Mom's upset." The doorbell rang before I could respond. Simone walked in, carrying breakfast pastries and her signature "We need to talk" expression. "I brought reinforcements," she announced, setting the box on my counter. "Also, you might want to check Facebook. Caroline's posted something interesting." I pulled out my phone, but Riley snatched it away. "Don't, it's not worth it." "Give it back," I demanded, reaching across the counter. "He's right," Simone interjected. "She's playing victim, claiming workplace harassment or something. It's ridiculous." The doorbell rang again. This time it was Kylie, her face flushed with anger. "You will not believe who I just ran into at Starbucks," she fumed, dropping her purse on my counter. "Trevor and Caroline looking very cozy. He's wearing the same clothes from last night." My stomach lurched. Simone immediately moved closer, her hand finding mine. "I took pictures," Kylie continued, pulling out her phone. "Just in case you need them for—" "Don't," Riley interrupted. "Savannah, you need to think carefully about your next move. The revenge thing? It felt good last night, I get it, but what?" I snapped. "I should just forgive and forget? Let him humiliate me in front of everyone and walk away?" "That's not what he's saying," Simone said softly. "But Riley's right about being careful. Trevor's already trying to spin this. I heard he told Dad you've been emotionally unavailable for months." I laughed bitterly. Emotionally unavailable? I was planning his surprise birthday party while he was buying jewelry for his girlfriend. The doorbell rang a third time. This time it was my parents. "Savannah Marie," my father boomed as he walked in. "What have you done?" "What have I done?" I stood up straighter. "Why don't you ask your precious son-in-law what he's done?" "Mark," my mother pleaded, "please don't." "No, Ivy, this needs to be addressed. Trevor called this morning. He's devastated. Says you ambushed him, humiliated him." "Oh my God," Kylie interrupted, shoving her phone in my father's face. "Is this what a devastated man looks like?" My father's face reddened as he looked at the photos of Trevor and Caroline. My mother gasped. "They're not even trying to hide it," Simone commented. "Classy." "That's—" My father stumbled over his words. "That's not—" "That's exactly what it looks like," I said quietly. "And that's not even the worst part. Want to know what I found in his office files?" Riley stepped forward. "Savannah, maybe we should—" "No, they should know. Everyone should know what their perfect son-in-law has been up to. Those business trips, the late nights. He's been cooking the books with Caroline's help. I have proof." The kitchen fell silent. My mother sank into a chair, her face pale. "How long?" my father asked, his voice different now, quieter. "Long enough to make me glad I kept the house in my name." I pulled out a folder from the kitchen drawer. "Here's everything I found. Bank statements, fake invoices, emails between them going back months." My father took the folder with trembling hands. As a retired accountant, he would understand exactly what he was looking at. "I'll kill him," he muttered after a few minutes of reading. "No, you won't," my mother said firmly, standing up. "Savannah, honey, I'm so sorry. We should have—" "It's okay, Mom," I said, feeling tears prick at my eyes for the first time since last night. "You couldn't have known." "What's your plan?" Riley asked, his earlier skepticism replaced with concern. "First, I meet with my lawyer this afternoon. Then—" I took a deep breath. "Then I start figuring out who I am without him." "You're my sister," Simone said fiercely. "That's who you are, and we've got your back." "All of us," my father added, closing the folder. "I'll make some calls. I know people who can help with the financial investigation." As my family rallied around me, I felt something shift inside. The hurt was still there, but underneath it was something stronger, something like hope. "One day at a time," Kylie said, pulling me into a hug. "And maybe change the locks?" For the first time in what felt like forever, I laughed. Really laughed. 3 days after changing the locks, I found myself sitting in a dimly lit coffee shop across from Harley, Trevor's former business partner. He'd reached out through LinkedIn, of all places, with a message that simply read, "We should talk." "I always knew Trevor would implode eventually," Harley said, stirring his black coffee. "That's why I got out when I did. But I never expected it to be so public." "Neither did I admitted, watching his face carefully. "Why did you really want to meet Harley?" He glanced around before pulling out a USB drive. "Because I've been waiting for someone to finally see Trevor for who he really is. And because I have something you need to see." My phone buzzed. Another message from Trevor. I'd been ignoring them all week, each one alternating between desperate pleas and thinly veiled threats. Let me guess, Harley said, nodding at my phone. He's either saying he'll change or threatening to ruin you. Both, actually, sometimes in the same message. Classic Trevor. Harley pushed the USB drive across the table. This contains every transaction record from when we were partners, including the ones he tried to delete. Before I could respond, a familiar voice cut through the cafe. Well, isn't this cozy? Caroline stood at our table, designer handbag clutched like a shield. She looked different, harder somehow, than she had at my birthday party. Please, join us, I said, gesturing to an empty chair. I'm sure you have plenty to add to the conversation. You think you're so clever, she hissed, but sat down anyway. Do you have any idea what you've done? The board is asking questions. Clients are nervous. Sounds like a you problem, Harley commented dryly. Caroline's head snapped toward him. You're supposed to be gone. Trevor said you signed an NDA. I did, Harley smiled, about the company's legitimate business practices, but fraud wasn't covered in that agreement. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Simone. Dad's looking at those files. Says it's worse than we thought. Call me ASAP. You know what's interesting, Caroline? I leaned forward. I've been doing some digging. Those Anderson account numbers you helped Trevor with? They don't add up, and your signature is on every document. Her face paled slightly. You don't know what you're talking about. Actually, she does, Harley interjected. I kept copies of everything, including the original numbers, before you two started playing creative accountants. Caroline's composure cracked. He promised me it was safe, that no one would ever know. Trevor promises a lot of things, I said quietly, like fidelity, honesty, that sapphire necklace. You don't understand, she whispered, suddenly looking very young. I needed this job. He said if I helped him, he'd take care of you, Harley finished, like he took care of his last assistant, or the intern before that. I felt the floor shift beneath me. What? Oh, you didn't know? Caroline laughed bitterly. I'm not special. I'm just the latest in a long line of Trevor's projects. He finds young women who need something, a job, a promotion, financial help, and offers to be their savior. While skimming money from client accounts, Harley added. It's his pattern. My phone buzzed again. Riley this time. Just talk to Dad. You need to see these numbers. Trevor's been busy. How much? I asked Caroline. How much did he take? She looked at her hands. Enough to send us both to jail. Not both of you, Harley corrected. All three of you. I'm assuming you've seen the offshore account statements? Caroline's head snapped up. What offshore accounts? Harley pulled out his laptop. The ones Trevor opened in your name, and Savannah's, and mine, though he never got access to that one. Want to see? As Harley turned the screen toward us, Caroline's face went from pale to ashen. That's not... I never... Let me guess, I said, feeling oddly calm. He had you sign some papers a few months ago? Said they were routine documentation? She nodded slowly. Welcome to Trevor's world, Harley said grimly, where everyone's a potential fall guy. My phone buzzed one final time. Trevor. We need to talk. Now, you don't know what you're doing. I looked at Caroline, saw the same fear in her eyes that I'd felt for months. Then at Harley, who'd escaped Trevor's web years ago and lived to tell about it. Actually, I said, picking up my phone, I know exactly what I'm doing. I turned to Caroline. Want to help me do it? She stared at me for a long moment, then reached for her purse and pulled out a thick folder. Everything I have is in here. Bank statements, emails, recorded conversations. I started keeping records after I found out about the others. Smart girl? Harley nodded approvingly. As I took the folder, my hand steady despite everything, I realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about justice. The conference room at my lawyer's office felt too small for the weight of what we were about to do. Caroline sat beside me, nervously twisting her ring, the one Trevor had given her last Christmas. I realized with a bitter taste in my mouth. These records are extensive, Sarah, my lawyer, said as she spread the documents across the mahogany table. The offshore accounts alone will be enough to bury him, Harley finished, pointing to a specific transaction. Look at this one. He used Savannah's social security number without her knowledge. The door opened, and my father walked in with Riley. Both looked grim. The forensic accountant finished his preliminary review, my father announced, dropping another stack of papers on the table. It's worse than we thought. Trevor wasn't just stealing from clients, he was laundering money. For who? Sarah asked, reaching for the new documents. Before anyone could answer, my phone lit up with Trevor's face. I'd forgotten I never changed his contact photo. Us laughing on our last vacation, before everything fell apart. Answer it, Harley suggested. On speaker. Let's hear what he has to say. I pressed the green button. Hello, Trevor. Baby, please, his voice crackled through the speaker. Whatever you think you're doing, stop. You don't understand the people involved. Oh, I understand plenty, I replied, watching Caroline's face grow paler. Like how you've been using my identity to open accounts, or how you've been grooming young employees for years. Silence on the other end. Then, who have you been talking to? Everyone, I said simply. Caroline's sitting right here, actually. Want to explain to her about the accounts in her name? Caroline. His voice turned sharp. What have you done? What I should have done months ago, she replied, her voice shaking but determined. I showed Savannah everything, Trevor. The recordings, the emails, the threats. You stupid bit. Careful, Riley cut in. You're on speaker and there are witnesses. Another silence. Who else is there? Your worst nightmare, Harley answered cheerfully. Hello, old friend? Harley, Trevor's voice cracked. This is impossible. You signed an NDA about legitimate business practices, Harley finished. But we both know that's not what we're dealing with here, don't we? The sound of something shattering came through the phone. You have no idea what you're getting into, Trevor hissed. These people, These people? Sarah interrupted, her pen poised over her legal pad. Would you care to elaborate on that, Mr. Baker? Who is this? Savannah, are you with a lawyer? I'm with several people who are very interested in your business practices, I replied, including Dad. Mark? Trevor's voice turned pleading. You have to understand. I was trying to build something, for the family, for Savannah. My father's face darkened. The only thing you built was a house of cards, and it's about to come down. Listen to me. Trevor's voice turned urgent. There's a safe in my office behind the Rothko print, the contents. They'll explain everything. But you can't turn those files over to anyone. People will get hurt. Caroline suddenly stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. The missing insurance payments, she whispered. The construction company that went bankrupt overnight. That wasn't just fraud, was it? Caroline, shut up, Trevor snapped. No, she shot back. Tell them what really happened to Michael from accounting when he threatened to go to the board. The room went deadly quiet. What happened to Michael? Sarah asked, her pen now racing across the paper. He had an accident, Caroline said quietly. Car brake failure. Trevor said it was tragic timing. You can't prove anything. Trevor's voice had turned cold. And if you try, you might find yourself having similar bad luck. Is that a threat? Sarah asked sharply. That's enough, I cut in, my heart pounding but my voice steady. Trevor, I'm going to hang up now. The next time you hear from me, it'll be through my lawyer. Savannah, wait. I ended the call. The room remained silent for several long moments. Well, Harley finally said, that was illuminating. We need to call the FBI, my father declared. This goes beyond financial fraud. Sarah was already dialing. I have a contact in the white-collar crimes division, given what we just heard. They'll want to talk to all of us, Caroline said, her voice small. I'll tell them everything. Riley moved to the window, peering through the blinds at the street below. We should be careful leaving here. If what he said about Michael is true, I'll call in some favors, Harley offered. Get some security in place. I looked at the scattered papers on the table, each one a piece of the puzzle I'd been too blind to see while living in it. I wanted revenge, I said quietly. I didn't expect to uncover a crime syndicate. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction, my father said, squeezing my shoulder. But you're not alone in this. No, I agreed, watching Sarah speak rapidly into her phone. I'm not alone anymore. The FBI office was nothing like the movies. No dramatic interrogation rooms or wall-sized screens, just fluorescent lights and generic office furniture. Agent Lisa Martinez sat across from me, her dark eyes scanning the documents spread between us. Mrs. Baker. Just Savannah, I corrected. I'm not keeping his name. She nodded. Savannah, what you and Ms. Webb have brought us, this is significant, but we need you to understand the risks. You mean besides the fact that my husband apparently has connections to organized crime? We believe Trevor was a mid-level player. Another agent, Tom, interjected from his position by the window, moving money for some very dangerous people. The door opened, and Caroline was escorted in by a third agent. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. Tell them what you told me, she said without preamble, about the safe. I straightened in my chair. Trevor mentioned a safe behind a painting in his office, said the contents would explain everything. We found it, Agent Martinez said. The contents were enlightening, but we also found this. She slid a photograph across the table. My hands shook as I picked it up. It was a picture of me, taken yesterday, getting coffee with Simone. We hadn't noticed anyone following us. He's having me watched? Not Trevor, Tom said grimly. His associates. They know you're talking to us. Caroline sank into a chair. This is my fault. If I hadn't helped him... Stop. I cut her off. You were manipulated just like I was. The only difference is you figured it out sooner. Agent Martinez leaned forward. We need to move you both to a safe location, today. What about my family? I asked. My sister, my parents? Already being contacted, Tom assured me. Your brother Riley is with federal marshals now. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. The painting wasn't the only thing hiding secrets. Check the garden shed. That's not from Trevor, I said, showing Agent Martinez. He doesn't know about... I stopped, remembering something. The garden. Last spring, Trevor insisted on rebuilding the shed himself. Wouldn't let anyone help. Caroline's head snapped up. He did the same thing at the lake house. Said he needed a project. Agent Martinez was already on her phone. We need a team at both locations, now. What aren't you telling us? I demanded. The agents exchanged looks before Tom spoke. We believe Trevor was keeping physical evidence, insurance in case his partners turned on him. Like recordings? Caroline asked. Because he always had this little device in his pocket. Said it was a backup phone. A recorder, Agent Martinez confirmed. We found several in his office safe, along with some very interesting conversations. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Simone. FBI just picked me up. What the hell is going on? Before I could respond, the office door burst open. A senior agent rushed in, face tense. We found something in the shed. Multiple hard drives, offshore account numbers, and... He paused, looking at me apologetically. And what? I pressed. A gun, he finished, with filed-off serial numbers. Caroline made a small choking sound. The Michael situation, she whispered. Agent Martinez stood up. That's it. You're both going into protective custody right now. No arguments. Wait, I said, pulling out my own phone. Let me show you something first. I pulled up a video file. Trevor didn't know I had cameras installed in the garden. After I found the first suspicious bank statement, I got paranoid. The agents huddled around my phone, watching as the footage showed Trevor making late-night trips to the shed, carrying packages and folders. This is from the night before my birthday party, I explained, fast-forwarding. The last time I saw him go in there. This is excellent, Agent Martinez said. But it also means you're in more danger than we thought. If he realizes you have this footage... My phone lit up with Trevor's number. Answer it, Tom instructed, already setting up recording equipment. Keep him talking. I took a deep breath and pressed accept. Hello? The garden shed, Savannah? Trevor's voice was eerily calm. You always were too clever for your own good. I learned from the best, I replied, watching the agents trace the call. You taught me to always have a backup plan. Did I teach you what happens to people who betray me? No, I said, feeling a strange sense of calm. But you taught me what happens to people who trust you. I think I prefer being your enemy. Silence, then. You have no idea what you've done. Actually, I smiled, looking at the agents surrounding me. I know exactly what I've done. The question is, do you? The line went dead. Agent Martinez immediately sprang into action, barking orders into her radio. He's running, Tom announced, looking at his phone. Just cleared his bank accounts. Let him run, I said, standing up. The evidence isn't going anywhere, and neither am I. Caroline looked at me with something like admiration. You planned this all along, didn't you? The cameras, the records. Let's just say I learned to sleep with one eye open, I replied. Now, about that protective custody. The safe house was actually a modest apartment in a city 3 hours from home. 2 weeks had passed since Trevor's disappearance, and my family was scattered across different locations under federal protection. The only familiar face was Simone, who'd been placed with me after Dad's heart scare. Dad's out of the hospital, Simone announced, hanging up her burner phone. Mom says his blood pressure is stabilizing. I stared out the window at the unfamiliar skyline. This is my fault. If I hadn't pushed so hard. Don't, Simone cut me off. Dad's condition is stress-related, yes, but the stress came from learning his son-in-law is a criminal, not from you exposing him. A knock at the door made us both freeze. Agent Martinez's voice came through. Daily check-in. After the proper verification procedures, she entered with Caroline in tow. I hadn't seen her since we'd been separated into different safe houses. They found Trevor's laptop, Caroline said without preamble, in a storage unit registered to my name, one I didn't know existed. Agent Martinez set a file on the coffee table. The contents are concerning. He had detailed information on all of you. Family routines, financial records, potential pressure points. He was preparing to run, I realized, building leverage against everyone who might talk. Yes, Martinez confirmed, but he made a mistake. The laptop also contained evidence of every transaction he ever made for his employers. Simone leaned forward. So you can arrest him? We could, Martinez said carefully, if we could find him. My phone, the new secure one, buzzed with a message from Riley. Turn on the news, now. I grabbed the remote, and there it was. Trevor's face plastered across the screen alongside the word missing. Local businessman Trevor Baker's vehicle was found abandoned near the Canadian border, the reporter announced. Police are treating his disappearance as suspicious after signs of struggle were found at the scene. It's staged, Caroline said immediately. It has to be. We think so too, Martinez agreed, but his associates might not see it that way. What do you mean? Simone asked. They might think he's cooperating with us, and if they think that, they'll want to silence him, I finished, and anyone connected to him. Another knock, this one urgent. Agent Tom burst in. We need to move, now. Someone access the safe house registry. How? Martinez demanded, already pulling out her phone. Internal leak. Pack your essentials, 5 minutes max. As we scrambled to gather our things, my secure phone buzzed again. An unknown number. Don't answer it, Martinez warned. Wait, Caroline said, looking over my shoulder. That's not Trevor's pattern. He uses burner phones, but always with area codes from... It's Harley, I realized. This is how he contacted me before? Martinez nodded, starting a trace. Answer on speaker. Harley? They're coming. His voice was rushed. Traffic sounds in the background. Trevor's partners. They think he flipped. They're cleaning house. We know, I said. We're moving now. No, you don't understand. The leak isn't just the safe house registry. It's everything. Client lists, witness locations, federal protocols. Martinez was already barking orders into her radio. Where are you? I asked Harley. Following a lead. Trevor's not running, Savannah. He's hunting. He's going to give them everyone involved to save himself. Including you? Including all of us. Listen, there's a file on his laptop. Password protected, labeled insurance. Get into it. How? Your anniversary date, he said. He always used it. Said no one would suspect something so obvious. The line went dead. We got a location, Tom announced. He's heading north. So is Trevor, Caroline added, looking at her phone. My friend at the bank just texted. He tried to access his secondary account from Montreal. Martinez made a quick decision. Change of plans. We're splitting up. Different locations, different routes. No, I said firmly. That's what they want, to isolate us, pick us off one by one. She's right, Simone agreed. We're stronger together. And we have something they don't know about, Caroline added. The insurance file. I pulled out my laptop, hands shaking slightly as I entered my anniversary date. The file opened, revealing hundreds of documents, photos, and videos. Oh my God, Caroline breathed, looking at the screen. He recorded everything. Every meeting, every threat, every deal. This isn't just insurance, Martinez said, scanning the files. This is a confession. And a death sentence if they find him, Tom added grimly. I looked at the faces around me. My sister, the woman my husband betrayed me with, the agents protecting us, all bound together by Trevor's web of lies. So we find him first, I said, before they do. Martinez nodded slowly. We'll need a plan. I have one, I replied, thinking of the garden shed cameras, the hidden recordings, all the times I'd been underestimated. And they'll never see it coming. The Montreal hotel lobby was exactly as Trevor described in his emails to Caroline, all gleaming marble and discreet luxury. I sat at the bar, wearing the sapphire necklace he'd given Caroline, knowing it would draw his attention. Target spotted. Agent Martinez's voice crackled through my hidden earpiece. Northwest entrance. I didn't turn around. Instead, I watched Trevor's reflection in the mirrored bar wall as he walked in, his confident stride faltering when he saw me. Of all the gin joints, I said as he slid onto the bar stool next to me, how's life as a fugitive? Savannah, he breathed, eyes fixed on the necklace. How did you get Caroline's necklace? I smiled, taking a sip of my martini. She gave it to me, along with everything else. His hand twitched toward his pocket, where he usually kept his recorder. You shouldn't be here. Actually, I'm exactly where I should be. The question is, why are you? You don't understand what's happening, he said, ordering a scotch with a shaking hand. Don't I? The insurance file was very educational. He froze, glass halfway to his lips. You got into the file? Our anniversary date? Really, Trevor? For someone so calculating, you can be incredibly sentimental. Target 2 entering through east door, Martinez warned in my ear. I watched in the mirror as a large man in an expensive suit walked in, scanning the room. Trevor's reflection went pale. We need to go, he said urgently, grabbing my arm. Now. Let go of me, I said loudly enough for nearby patrons to turn. Trevor immediately released me, forcing a smile. Please, he whispered. These people, they'll kill us both. Like Michael from accounting? I asked. Or should I say, like you killed Michael from accounting? I never... He stopped as another suited man entered from the south entrance. Savannah, please, I can explain everything. Target 3 in position, Martinez confirmed. We're ready. I reached for my purse, pulling out a USB drive. You mean explain this? Every transaction, every meeting, every murder, it's all here. Plus a few recordings of my own. What recordings? Remember last month when you met those men in our garden shed? Did you really think I wouldn't notice the late-night visits, the mysterious packages? His face contorted. You were spying on me? I learned from the best, I replied, standing up. Oh, and those offshore accounts in my name? I transferred everything back, every penny. The FBI is tracking it all now. You stupid... He grabbed for the USB drive, but I stepped back. Federal agents! Martinez's voice boomed through the lobby. Everyone down. The chaos was immediate. Hotel guests screamed and dropped to the floor as agents swarmed in from every entrance. The suited men reached for weapons but were quickly surrounded. Trevor tried to run, but Riley, who'd been posing as a bellhop, tackled him from behind. That's for Dad's heart attack, my brother growled, pinning Trevor's arms. Agent Martinez approached with handcuffs. Trevor Baker, you're under arrest for fraud, money laundering, conspiracy to commit murder. You can't prove anything, Trevor spat. Actually, Caroline said, emerging from her position at a nearby table. We can prove everything. Those recordings you kept? I made copies. All those meetings where you thought I was just your loyal assistant, I was building a case. You set me up, he said, looking between us. All of you. No, Trevor, I corrected him. You set yourself up. We just made sure you couldn't run from it. As the agents led him away, he turned back to me. I did it all for us, for our future. Our future died the moment you decided to betray everything we built, I replied. But hey, look on the bright side. Orange might be your color. The lobby slowly cleared, guests being interviewed by agents, the suited men taken away in separate vehicles. Simone appeared from her surveillance position at the hotel restaurant. Dad's watching the live feed from the safe house, she told me. Says his blood pressure's never been better. Agent Martinez approached, looking satisfied. We got them all. The entire network. Your evidence and testimony will put them away for decades. And Trevor? Caroline asked. His partners aren't happy he kept records, Martinez said. He'll be safer in federal custody than anywhere else. I reached up and unclasped the sapphire necklace, holding it out to Caroline. I believe this belongs to you. She shook her head. Keep it. Consider it payment for opening my eyes. Speaking of payment, Riley interjected, the FBI found Trevor's real estate holdings. Turns out my sister owns a lake house she didn't know about. I laughed. A real free laugh. Anyone up for a vacation when this is all over? First, Martinez said, we need your official statements, all of you. I looked at my unlikely team, my siblings, my husband's mistress turned ally, the agents who'd protected us, and felt something settle in my chest. Let's finish this, I said. I've got a life to rebuild. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters as I walked out into the bright afternoon sun. The verdict had taken less than 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. Miss Baker, a reporter called out, how does it feel knowing your testimony helped bring down one of the largest money laundering operations in the state? Before I could answer, Simone stepped in front of me. It's Miss Clark now. She's taken back her maiden name. My phone buzzed. A message from Caroline. Just landed in Seattle. New job starts Monday. Thank you for everything. Savannah. My father called from the courthouse entrance, where he stood with my mother and Riley. The U.S. attorney wants to speak with you. As I turned to go back inside, a familiar voice cut through the crowd. Savannah, wait. Trevor's mother pushed through the reporters, her face tear-stained. Please, he's still your husband. You can ask for leniency. Margaret, my mother interrupted, stepping forward. Your son orchestrated fraud, laundered money for criminals, and was involved in a murder. The time for leniency is long past. He made mistakes. Mistakes? Riley scoffed. He tried to frame his own wife for his crimes. He put our entire family in danger. I trusted him, I said quietly, making Margaret fall silent. We all did. That was our mistake. Inside the courthouse, Agent Martinez waited with the U.S. Attorney and Harley, who'd just finished his own testimony. The task force wants to thank you, the U.S. Attorney said. Your evidence didn't just stop Trevor. It helped us uncover corruption in 3 state governments. I didn't do it alone, I replied, glancing at Harley. A lot of people risked everything to expose the truth. Speaking of truth, Martinez added, Trevor's partners are all pleading guilty. No one's coming after you or your family anymore. My father pulled out an envelope, which means we can finally do this. He handed it to me. The deed to the lake house, transferred fully into your name. No traces of Trevor left. And this, Harley said, offering another envelope. My company's buying out Trevor's share of our old business. You're entitled to half, as his wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife. I opened it, saw the number, and nearly dropped the envelope. This is too much. It's exactly what you deserve, Simone insisted, for everything you've been through. Besides, Riley added with a grin, someone needs to maintain that lake house. My mother touched my arm. Have you decided what you're going to do with it? I nodded. I'm turning it into a retreat center for women leaving difficult situations. Kylie's already agreed to help run it. Perfect use for a fresh start. Martinez smiled. Speaking of which, she pulled out a business card. The FBI's Forensic Accounting Division is always looking for people with your attention to detail. Are you offering me a job? Consider it a thank you for helping us close our biggest case this year. The courthouse doors opened again, and I watched as officers led Trevor toward the prisoner transport vehicle. He looked smaller somehow, his expensive suit replaced with prison orange. Any last words for him? Riley asked. I shook my head. I've said everything I needed to say in my testimony. The rest is just noise. That's my girl, my father said proudly. My phone buzzed again, a message from Kylie. First retreat center guest arrived. She reminds me of you 6 months ago. Scared but strong. Looking around at my support system, family, friends, even former enemies turned allies, I felt the last weight lift from my shoulders. You know what this calls for? Simone announced. A celebration, not of Trevor's conviction, but of you, of survival, of starting over. Count me in, Harley said. First round's on me. Before we go, Martinez interjected. One last thing. She handed me a final envelope. The sapphire necklace sold at auction. As seized property, the proceeds go to victim restitution. In this case, that's you. I don't want anything connected to him. I started to protest. Take it, my mother advised. Use it for the retreat center. Turn his attempt to buy silence into something that helps people speak up. I opened the envelope and smiled. First thing we're installing is a top-notch security system. That's assuming Riley doesn't volunteer to be your full-time security guard, Simone teased. Hey, someone has to keep an eye on my little sister, Riley protested, even if she did prove she can take care of herself. As we walked out into the sunshine together, I realized something. My birthday wish had come true, just not in the way I'd expected. I'd wished for clarity, for truth, for strength. I got all three, and a whole new life in the bargain. So, Simone linked her arm through mine. Ready for your next chapter? I looked back at the courthouse one last time, then forward at the path ahead. More than ready, I said. Let's go write it.
I stared at my bank statement, reading and rereading the numbers until they blurred into meaningless shapes. 0. The account that had held my future was empty, leaving nothing but a hollow ache in my chest where hope used to live. My name is Veronica, and I spent 10 years building that marriage fund. Every birthday check, every summer job paycheck, every bonus from my weekend tutoring gigs, all carefully saved since I was 13. Mom had called it my smart girl fund back then, praising my dedication while she helped me make my weekly deposits. Honey, are you still working? Brandon's voice carried from the kitchen, where he was making us dinner. The pasta's almost ready. I couldn't answer. My throat felt too tight, my hands trembling as I clutched my phone. The banking app showed a transfer to Ross Industries LLC, my mother's company, made just 3 hours ago. Veronica? Brandon appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a dish towel. His smile faded when he saw my face. What's wrong? She took it, I whispered. All of it. $48,000. Gone. Brandon crossed the room in 3 quick strides, sitting beside me on the couch. What do you mean? Who took it? My mother. The words tasted bitter. She cleaned out my marriage fund. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom. Family meeting tonight. Dinner at 7. Important news to share. I showed Brandon the message, and he wrapped an arm around my shoulders. Maybe there's an explanation. Your mom wouldn't just... Wouldn't she? I stood up, pacing the small living room of my apartment. Let's go find out. The drive to my parents' house felt surreal. Brandon offered to come with me, but this was something I needed to face alone. The familiar colonial-style home loomed before me, warm lights glowing in the windows like nothing was wrong. Mom opened the door before I could knock, wearing her signature red lipstick and perfectly pressed blazer. Darling, perfect timing. I just opened a bottle of champagne. I followed her into the dining room, where she'd laid out an elaborate spread. Where's Dad? Business trip to Seattle, she said, pouring champagne into crystal flutes. But this couldn't wait. I have amazing news. My hands clenched into fists under the table. Does it have anything to do with the $48,000 you took from my account? She didn't even flinch. Oh, that! She waved her hand dismissively. Yes, I needed to make an emergency investment, but don't worry, it's going to pay off beautifully. I've finally secured the merger with Fleming Industries. You needed to make an investment? My voice shook. That was my money, Mom. My marriage fund. You had no right. Darling, don't be dramatic. She pushed a champagne flute toward me. This is family money, and family takes care of family. The merger will triple our company's value within a year. I'll pay you back double. I never agreed to loan you anything. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. You stole from me! Mom's perfectly manicured fingers tightened around her glass. I did not steal. I made an executive decision as your mother. This merger will secure our family's future. Your future. My future? I laughed. The sound harsh and foreign to my own ears. The only thing you've secured is the death of any trust I had in you. You're being childish, she snapped. This is business. Sometimes we have to make hard decisions. No, I cut her off. This isn't business. This is betrayal, pure and simple. Her expression hardened. When you're older, you'll understand. Sometimes parents have to make difficult choices for their children's benefit. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door. The only thing I understand is that you saw my dreams as nothing more than convenient capital for your ambitions. Veronica! she called after me. Don't walk away from this opportunity. The merger. I spun around at the door. Keep your merger, Mom, and keep the money. Consider it the price I paid to finally see you clearly. The drive home was a blur. When I finally pulled into my parking spot, I sat in the car, letting the tears fall freely. My phone buzzed repeatedly, Mom's name flashing on the screen, but I ignored it. Instead, I called Prudence, my best friend since college. She picked up on the second ring. Hey V, what's up? Remember how you always said I should start my own business instead of working for someone else? I wiped my eyes, a plan already forming in my mind. I think I'm ready to talk about that. Really? I could hear the excitement in her voice. What changed? I watched the sun setting over the city skyline, feeling something shift inside me. Everything, I said. Everything changed. 3 days after my mother's betrayal, I sat across from Prudence at our favorite coffee shop, laptops open and ideas flowing. The bitter aroma of espresso filled the air as we brainstormed business concepts, my pain slowly transforming into purpose. Digital marketing is exploding right now, Prudence said, tapping her perfectly manicured nails against her keyboard. And with your content creation background and my tech experience, we could build something real. I took a sip of my latte, considering. You really think we could compete with the big agencies? We don't need to compete with them, not yet. We start small, focus on local businesses, build our reputation. She turned her laptop toward me, showing a spreadsheet of potential startup costs. Look, we could launch with minimal overhead. My phone buzzed. Another message from Mom. I'd stopped reading them after the 20th apology. That wasn't really an apology. She's still trying to contact you? Prudence asked, noticing my grimace. Yeah, Brandon says I should at least hear her out, but... I shook my head. I can't deal with her right now. This is more important. The bell above the coffee shop door chimed, and I froze. Mom walked in, spotting me immediately. Of course she'd known where to find me. I'd been coming here every Wednesday morning for years. Veronica, darling. She approached our table, acting as if nothing was wrong. I've been trying to reach you. Oh, hello, Prudence. Prudence gave me a questioning look. I nodded slightly, and she started packing up her things. I'll give you some privacy. No, I said firmly. Stay. Mom, what do you want? Mom pulled up a chair, uninvited. The merger is proceeding beautifully. Annika, you remember Mrs. Fleming. She's already talking about expanding into international markets. Your investment is going to pay off tremendously. My investment? I laughed incredulously. You mean the money you stole? Borrowed, she corrected, smiling at the barista who glanced our way. And as I said, it will be worth double when... Stop! I closed my laptop with more force than necessary. Just stop! You didn't borrow anything. You took my money without asking, without permission, and you're acting like I should be grateful? I'm trying to secure your future. She leaned forward, lowering her voice. This merger will change everything. In fact, I was thinking you could come work for the company. We'll need someone to handle our social media presence. Are you serious right now? I stood up, gathering my things. You steal my savings and then try to recruit me? Prudence touched my arm gently. V, maybe we should... No. I faced my mother directly. I don't want your job. I don't want your money. And I definitely don't want your version of family loyalty that only seems to flow in one direction. Mom's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly. You're being unreasonable. This is business. Everything's business with you, isn't it? I slung my bag over my shoulder. Well, here's some business advice. Don't invest other people's money without their consent. It's called fraud. The color drained from her face. You wouldn't dare suggest... No, I wouldn't press charges. Because unlike you, family actually means something to me. I turned to Prudence. Ready? Outside, the spring air felt clean and fresh compared to the tension-filled coffee shop. Prudence linked her arm through mine as we walked. You okay? She asked. Actually, yeah. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. I have about $12,000 in my personal savings. Not much, but it's a start, Prudence finished. I can match that. Plus, I know some potential clients who've been asking about social media management. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Brandon. Hey, beautiful, how'd the business planning go? It's happening, I told him, feeling a surge of excitement. We're really doing this. Can you come over tonight? I want to run some ideas by you. Already on my way with takeout and wine, he replied. Prudence coming too? I looked at my friend, who nodded enthusiastically. Yeah, we've got work to do. That evening, surrounded by Chinese food containers and business plans, I felt something I hadn't expected. Gratitude. Mom's betrayal had pushed me to finally chase my own dreams instead of living up to her expectations. To new beginnings, Brandon raised his wine glass. To showing them what we can do, Prudence added. I clinked my glass against theirs, a smile spreading across my face. To building something that's actually ours. Later, after they'd left, I sat on my balcony watching the city lights. Another text from Mom lit up my phone. Darling, please be reasonable. Family has to stick together. I deleted the message without responding. She was right about one thing. Family should stick together. But first, they have to earn that trust. 6 months into running our digital marketing agency, I sat across from Michael, our financial advisor, trying not to fidget as he reviewed our numbers. Well, he said, looking up from his tablet, your growth rate is impressive, but we're stretched too thin, I finished. The dark circles under my eyes told that story clearly enough. Michael nodded. You need to hire. Working 18-hour days isn't sustainable, even with Prudence sharing the load. Hiring means payroll, I sighed, and benefits, and training time we don't have. Oh, it also means scaling up. He turned his tablet toward me, showing a projection graph. Look, you've landed 15 clients in 6 months. That's fantastic, but you're hitting a ceiling. My phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. Meeting done yet? Dinner's getting cold. Almost, I replied quickly, then turned back to Michael. What would you suggest? Take out a small business loan. Your numbers are solid enough to qualify, and no! The word came out sharper than I intended. No loans. We bootstrap or nothing. Michael raised an eyebrow. This isn't about your mother's company, is it? I hadn't told him the full story, but news traveled fast in business circles. Mom's merger with Fleming Industries was making waves, not all of them good. This is about doing things right, I said firmly. Our way. Fair enough. He started typing. Then let's talk about maximizing your current resources. An hour later, I rushed into Brandon's apartment, where he waited with reheated pasta and understanding eyes. That bad? He asked, pulling out a chair for me. Actually, no. I grabbed a fork. Michael thinks we're doing well. Too well, maybe. We need to hire, but you're scared of taking on debt, Brandon finished. You know, not every loan is a betrayal waiting to happen. I stopped mid-bite. That's not what this is about, isn't it? He reached across the table, taking my hand. Babe, I've watched you work yourself to exhaustion these past months. You're proving something. I get it. But at what cost? Before I could respond, my phone rang. Prudence's name flashed on the screen. V, turn on the business news, now. Brandon grabbed the remote, switching to the financial channel. There was my mother, standing beside Anika Fleming at a press conference. The ticker at the bottom read, Ross Industries faces investigation over merger irregularities. Allegations of misappropriated funds and investor misconduct, the reporter was saying. Sources claim several key stakeholders were misled about company valuations. Holy shit, Brandon whispered. My phone buzzed again. Mom calling this time. I let it go to voicemail. V? Prudence's voice crackled through the speaker. What do we do? This could affect us by association. I took a deep breath, my mind racing. Call Michael. Get him to draft a statement clarifying that our agency has no connection to Ross Industries. Then call every client personally first thing tomorrow. Full transparency. On it, she said. Want me to come over? No, stay focused. We've got work to do. I hung up and looked at Brandon. I need to go to the office. He was already grabbing his keys. I'll drive. At midnight, I sat in our small office space, drafting emails while Brandon brought coffee. Prudence worked remotely, updating our website to include a clear statement about our company's independent ownership. Your mother called again, Brandon said softly, setting a cup beside me. Let her, I kept typing. She made her choices. I'm making mine. A knock at the office door made us both jump. Michael stood there, looking surprisingly alert for the late hour. Thought you might need this, he said, holding up a folder. Complete breakdown of your company's financial independence, certified by my firm. And, he pulled out a business card, a contact at the Times. They might be interested in a story about young entrepreneurs succeeding through ethical business practices. I stared at him. You came all the way here at midnight to bring us this? He shrugged. Good people doing good work deserve support. Besides, he smiled, I have a feeling your company's about to get a lot more attention. The right kind. As he left, Brandon wrapped his arms around me from behind. See? Not everyone in business is out to get you. I leaned back against him, watching our company logo glow on the computer screen. Maybe you're right. About everything. About hiring? Taking calculated risks? Yeah. I pulled up our financials. First thing tomorrow, we start interviewing. But we do it smart. No loans, but we use what we have better. Michael showed me some options. Brandon kissed the top of my head. That's my girl. Now, how about we get some sleep? Tomorrow's going to be busy. Looking at the mess of papers and coffee cups around us, I smiled. This wasn't the path I'd planned, but maybe it was better. This was something I was building, not something being built for me, or despite me. Sleep can wait, I said, turning back to my computer. We've got an empire to build. 1 year into running our agency, I stood in front of a room full of potential investors, presenting our latest quarterly results. The confidence in my voice surprised even me. We'd grown from 15 clients to 50, hired 6 full-time employees, and moved into real offices downtown. And that concludes our presentation, I said, clicking to the final slide. Any questions? A familiar voice from the back of the room made my blood freeze. I have one. Mom stood up, looking immaculate as always, though slightly thinner than I remembered. Your growth projections are impressive, but have you considered the benefits of a strategic partnership with a larger firm? Prudence tensed beside me. We hadn't spoken to my mother since the merger scandal broke, though her company had somehow survived the investigation. We're not currently seeking partnerships, I replied professionally. Next question. Actually, Mom pressed on, I've been following your success closely. Ross Industries could offer significant resources. Thank you for your interest, I cut her off, but we're maintaining our independence. Now, does anyone have questions about our actual presentation? The meeting wrapped up shortly after, with several investors expressing genuine interest. As people filed out, Mom approached the podium. Darling, you can't ignore me forever. Watch me. I started packing up my laptop. Your company is doing well, she continued, but imagine what we could accomplish together. The merger difficulties are behind us now, and… Mom. I finally looked at her directly. Stop. This isn't about business. This is about you trying to control what you can't have. I'm trying to help. She reached for my arm, but I stepped back. Veronica, please. I've learned from my mistakes. Let me prove it. Prudence appeared at my side. V, our next meeting starts in 15 minutes. There is no meeting, Mom said sharply. I checked your calendar with your assistant. You did what? I spun around. You went through our office? I had to. You won't return my calls, won't come to dinner. Because you stole from me. The words echoed in the empty conference room. And now you're trying to steal my company too? It's not stealing to want to help my daughter succeed. No, I said quietly. It's stealing when you take what isn't yours. My money then, my company now. Nothing's changed. A knock at the door interrupted us. Brandon stood there, concern etched on his face. Everything okay? I heard raised voices. Everything's fine, I said, grabbing my things. Mom was just leaving. Actually, Mom straightened her blazer. I have a proposition, a legitimate one. She pulled out a folder. Your company's reputation for social media management is outstanding. Ross Industries needs that expertise. I'm prepared to offer. Stop. I held up my hand. Just stop. Do you really not see what you're doing? Using business as an excuse to force your way back into my life? That's not. It is. I moved toward the door. And the answer is no. No to business, no to dinner, no to all of it. Build your own success for once, instead of trying to co-opt mine. Brandon took my hand as we left, Prudence following close behind. In the elevator, I finally let out the breath I'd been holding. You okay? Brandon asked softly. Actually, yeah. I squeezed his hand. For the first time, I really am. Back in our office, Prudence pulled up our security settings. I'm changing all the passwords and access codes. No more surprise visits from helicopter parents. Good. I sat at my desk, opening my email. And set up interviews for a new assistant, one who won't give out our calendar to random people claiming to be family. Already on it. She paused. V? You know she'll try again, right? Probably. I looked around our office, at the awards we'd won, the vision board covered in our goals, the team working diligently at their desks. But this? This is ours. We built it. No one gets to take that away. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Heard about the investor meeting. 3 serious inquiries already. No strings attached. I smiled, showing the message to Prudence. See? We don't need anyone's help, especially not hers. Huh, speaking of help, Brandon called from the doorway. Dinner at my place tonight? I'm making that pasta you love. Can't, I replied, pulling up a client proposal. Too much work. He walked over, closing my laptop gently. The Empire will still be here tomorrow. Tonight, you need to breathe. Looking at his caring face, I felt the tension start to ease. Okay, but I'm bringing my phone. Wouldn't expect anything less, he laughed. Now come on, boss lady. Rome wasn't built in a day. No? I agreed, standing up. But I bet they didn't have their mothers trying to hostile take over the construction site either. As we left the office, I caught my reflection in the window. Confident, strong, unafraid. Mom had taught me one valuable lesson after all. Sometimes the best success is the kind you build entirely on your own. The email arrived on a Tuesday morning, just as I was finishing my second coffee. The sender's name made me pause. Anika Fleming. Prudence, I called out. Come look at this. She hurried over from her office, leaning over my shoulder to read. Dear Veronica, I've been following your company's impressive growth with great interest. Perhaps we could meet for lunch? There's a business opportunity I'd like to discuss, one that doesn't involve your mother. Best regards, Anika Fleming. Well, that's interesting, Prudence mused. Isn't she the one who merged with my mother's company? Yeah. I drummed my fingers on the desk, and then somehow came out clean when the scandal broke. My phone rang. Brandon. Hey, you see the news about Ross Industries? I quickly pulled up a business news site. The headline made my stomach drop. Ross Industries faces bankruptcy amid failed international expansion. Holy shit, I whispered. There's more, Brandon said. Your dad just called me. Your mom's not answering her phone. Before I could respond, our office door burst open. Mom stood there, looking nothing like her usual polished self. Her makeup was smeared, hair disheveled. Veronica, please. Her voice cracked. I need your help. Prudence quietly closed my office door, giving us privacy. I took a deep breath. Brandon, I'll call you back. Mom collapsed into the chair across from my desk. Everything's falling apart. Annika, she played me. The international contracts were fake. The investors are pulling out. And you're here because you're successful. She leaned forward desperately. Your company is thriving. If we could merge. Stop right there. I held up my hand. You're not getting anywhere near my company. I'm your mother. Yeah, the same mother who stole my savings and tried to take over my business. I stood up. The same mother who's only here because she needs something. A knock at the door interrupted us. My assistant poked her head in. Ms. Fleming is here for your lunch meeting? Mom's head snapped up. Annika? You're meeting with Annika? I haven't even responded to her email yet, I said, confused. But there she was, Annika Fleming, striding into my office like she owned it. Veronica, darling! She air-kissed my cheeks, completely ignoring Mom. I hope you don't mind me dropping by. When you didn't respond immediately, I thought a personal touch might be better. You backstabbing witch, Mom snarled, rising from her chair. Annika smiled coldly. Alyssa, you're looking tired. Bankruptcy proceedings can be so stressful. Get out, I said quietly. Excuse me? Annika turned to me, surprised. Both of you, get out of my office. I pressed the intercom. Security, please escort my visitors out. But my offer, Annika protested. Let me guess, I cut her off. You want to buy into my company. Use us to finish what you started with Mom's business. Create a nice little empire for yourself? She recovered quickly, smoothing her designer jacket. I see you're as sharp as they say. Think about it, Veronica. With my resources and your talent, I said get out. Security appeared at the door. And don't contact me again. Either of you. After they were gone, Prudence rushed in. Are you okay? That was intense. No, I admitted, sinking into my chair. But I will be. I pulled up my email and started typing. What are you doing? Calling Michael. We need to review our security protocols, shareholding structure, everything. I looked up at her. They're both desperate now. Mom's losing everything, and Annika. She's like a shark smelling blood. Should we be worried? No, I said firmly, because we built this company right. No shortcuts, no schemes, no betrayals. My phone buzzed. Brandon asking if I was okay. We have something they never will. Integrity. Prudence sat on the edge of my desk. Your mom looked pretty rough. Yeah. I stared out the window at the city skyline. But she made her choices, just like I made mine. Speaking of choices, Prudence pulled up our calendar. We have that charity gala tonight. Still want to go? I thought about it for a moment. Actually, yes. Let's show everyone that we're not hiding, not worried, and definitely not for sale. Later that night, as Brandon and I got ready for the gala, he watched me adjust my dress in the mirror. You know, most people would be shaken after a day like today. I'm not most people. I turned to face him. And maybe that's the silver lining in all this. Mom taught me exactly what kind of businesswoman I don't want to be. He kissed me softly. Ready to go show them what kind of businesswoman you are? I grabbed my clutch, feeling stronger than ever. They won't know what hit them. The doorbell rang at 3 a.m., jolting me awake. Brandon stirred beside me, reaching for his phone. Who's here at this hour? He mumbled. I was already pulling on my robe, a sense of dread building in my stomach. Through the peephole, I saw my father standing there, looking exhausted. Dad? I opened the door. What's wrong? He stepped inside, his usually pristine suit wrinkled, his eyes red. Your mother's gone. What do you mean, gone? Brandon appeared behind me, fully awake now. She left this morning, cleaned out our joint accounts, took her passport. Dad sank onto my couch. The police say they can't do anything. She's an adult who left voluntarily. I sat across from him, my mind racing. The bankruptcy proceedings are tomorrow. He rubbed his face. She was supposed to testify, without her there. Everything falls apart. I finished. My phone buzzed. Prudence. V, turn on the news. Now. Brandon grabbed the remote. The business channel showed footage of police outside Ross Industries headquarters. The ticker read, CEO Alyssa Ross missing, millions unaccounted for. Jesus, Brandon whispered. My father's phone rang. He looked at the screen and handed it to me. "She's calling. I can't. I just can't." With shaking hands, I answered. "Mom?" "Darling." Her voice was eerily calm. "I suppose everyone's looking for me?" "Where are you? Dad's here. He's worried sick. I need your help, Veronica." She spoke quickly now. "I can make this all go away, but I need capital. Your company is doing so well." "Stop." I gripped the phone tighter. "You're asking me for money? Now?" "Just a loan. 2 million. That's all I need. I can fix everything." "You can't fix this, Mom. You need to come home, face the consequences. Like you faced me?" Her voice turned bitter. "My own daughter, who wouldn't help when I needed it, who built her success on the ruins of my reputation." "I built my success honestly," I was shouting now. "Something you never understood." "Then prove it. Help me now. Show you're better than me. Please, Veronica, I'm your mother." Dad reached for the phone. "Let me talk to her." But before I could hand it over, Mom spoke again. "If you don't help me, I'll tell everyone how you built your client base using insider information from Ross Industries, how you stole our contacts." "That's a lie." "Does it matter? In business, perception is reality. You taught me that, remember?" The line went dead. I stared at the phone, feeling sick. Brandon wrapped an arm around me. "We need to call Michael." "Already texting him," I said numbly. "Dad, you should talk to the police." He nodded, standing slowly. "I never thought. 30 years of marriage." After he left, Brandon held me while I shook with anger and fear. My phone buzzed constantly. News outlets wanting comments, clients checking in, Prudence coordinating our response. At sunrise, Michael arrived with our lawyer. They set up in my living room, papers spread everywhere. "She can't hurt you," Michael assured me. "Your company's records are spotless. We can prove every client came through legitimate channels." "But the accusation alone could cause damage," our lawyer warned. "We need to get ahead of this." "How?" I asked. "Full transparency." He started typing on his laptop. "We release all our client acquisition records, showing clear timelines. Meanwhile, we prep a statement distancing you from your mother's actions." Brandon brought coffee for everyone. "What about the 2 million she wanted?" "That would be aiding and abetting," Michael said firmly. "Plus, it would validate her threats." "No, we fight this the right way." My phone rang again, an unknown international number. "Don't answer," our lawyer warned. "Let everything go through proper channels." I stared at the screen, remembering the day Mom first helped me open my savings account. "Build something that lasts," she'd said then. "Something that makes you proud." "I am proud," I whispered to myself, declining the call. "Just not in the way you wanted." Prudence burst through the door, laptop in hand. "Emergency meeting at the office. Annika Fleming is giving a press conference in an hour." "About what?" Brandon asked. "About how she tried to warn everyone about Mom's fraudulent activities." Prudence looked at me. "And about how she has evidence that other companies might be involved." I stood up, suddenly energized. "Let her try. We have nothing to hide." Michael gathered his papers. "That's my girl. Sometimes the best defense is radical honesty." As we headed to the office, Brandon squeezed my hand. "You okay?" "No," I admitted, "but I'm done letting her control my life through fear. We fight back, the right way." The sun was fully up now, painting the city gold. Somewhere out there, Mom was running from her choices. But I was done running. It was time to stand and fight. "Ms. Fleming's allegations are baseless," I stated firmly into the forest of microphones before me. "Our company maintains the highest ethical standards, and we welcome any investigation into our business practices." The press conference room buzzed with questions. I'd chosen to hold it in our office building, on our terms. Prudence stood to my right, Brandon and Michael in the front row. "What about your mother's claims regarding stolen client information?" a reporter called out. "Every single one of our client relationships can be traced to legitimate networking, referrals, and hard work." I gestured to the packets being distributed. "We're releasing full documentation of our client acquisition process, verified by independent auditors. And your mother's current whereabouts? I have no knowledge of my mother's location or activities. I took a deep breath. However, I want to make one thing clear. This company stands on its own merits. We are not connected to Ross Industries or its current legal troubles. Suddenly, the back doors burst open. Annika strode in, flanked by two men in suits. Really? She called out loudly. No connection at all? Then perhaps you'd like to explain these? She held up a folder. My stomach dropped as I recognized it. The original business plans I'd drafted at my parents' house on Ross Industries' letterhead. Those documents were stolen from my private files, I said, keeping my voice steady. Were they? Annika smiled coldly. Or were they company property, used to build your competing business? Before I could respond, Michael stepped forward. Those documents were Ms. Ross's personal property, created on her own time. We have dated drafts and witnesses to prove it. Ladies and gentlemen, Annika addressed the reporters. I think you'll find these documents very interesting. They show nothing. A new voice cut through the chaos. Everyone turned. Dad stood in the doorway, holding his own folder. Those documents show nothing, except that my daughter had entrepreneurial dreams while working a summer job at her mother's company. Dreams she pursued legally and ethically. He walked to the podium, placing his folder beside me. What these papers show, he continued, pulling out a stack of documents, is the real fraud. Evidence of how you and my wife conspired to manipulate company valuations during the merger. Annika's smile faltered. That's absurd. The investigation cleared you because key evidence was hidden, Dad interrupted. Evidence I've now provided to the SEC and FBI. The room erupted in camera flashes and shouted questions. Security moved toward Annika as she backed away, her face ashen. This isn't over, she hissed at me before being escorted out. I turned back to the microphones. As you can see, we have nothing to hide. Our success comes from integrity, innovation, and hard work. Thank you for your time. In my office afterward, Dad hugged me tight. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have seen what was happening sooner. You did what you could, I said, pulling back. But Mom has been found, he said quietly. Dubai. The authorities are bringing her back. Prudence knocked and entered with her laptop. V, you need to see this. Our client retention numbers since the press conference, they're up. Way up. What? I looked at the screen. How is that possible? Because, Michael said, joining us, people respect honesty. Your transparency just proved every good thing we've been saying about this company. Brandon appeared with coffee for everyone. Plus, 3 major companies just reached out about potential contracts. Seems they appreciate working with a business that has nothing to hide. I sat at my desk, overwhelmed. Dad, will you be okay? When they bring her back? He straightened his tie, looking older but somehow stronger. I'll manage. The truth needed to come out. Your mother, she lost her way long ago. I just didn't want to see it. Speaking of truth, Prudence said, Annika's being questioned by the FBI right now. Apparently, your dad's evidence opened quite a few doors. Good. I stood up, walking to the window. Let them all face what they've done. We'll keep building something real. Brandon came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. You know what this means, right? You've won. No. I turned to face the room, my father finally standing up for what's right. Prudence, my partner in building something honest. Michael, who believed in us when others doubted. And Brandon, who never left my side. We've won. All of us. My phone buzzed. A text from Mom's number. I'm sorry for everything. Maybe someday you'll understand. I showed it to Dad, who shook his head sadly. She still doesn't get it, does she? No, I replied, deleting the message. But I do. I understand that success without integrity isn't success at all. Prudence raised her coffee cup. To integrity? To integrity, we all echoed. Outside my office window, the city stretched endlessly, full of possibilities. Mom had taught me what success shouldn't look like. Now it was time to show the world what it should be. The courthouse steps felt colder than usual as I waited for the verdict. Brandon held my hand while Prudence paced nearby, all of us watching the heavy doors. "Whatever happens in there," Brandon whispered, "you've already won." The doors opened. Dad emerged first, looking drained but relieved. Behind him, Mom was led out in handcuffs, her designer suit replaced by prison orange. Our eyes met briefly before she looked away. 7 years, Dad said quietly, reaching us, and full restitution to the investors. Annika had gotten 5 years in a separate trial last week. The empire they'd built on lies had finally crumbled completely. "Mr. Ramirez is waiting at the office," Prudence said, checking her phone. "The acquisition paperwork is ready." I nodded, taking one last look at Mom as they led her to the transport vehicle. She turned suddenly, calling out, "Veronica, wait!" Against my better judgment, I walked over. The guard kept a careful distance, but stayed close. "I get it now," she said softly. "Watching you in court, seeing what you've built, I finally understand." "Understand what?" "That I taught you everything wrong." Her eyes filled with tears. "Success isn't about winning at all costs. It's about being someone worth becoming." I swallowed hard. "You're right. But it's too late for lessons now." "Ah, I know." She straightened up, something of her old pride returning. "But maybe it's not too late to say I'm proud of you. Not for your success, for your integrity." The guard stepped forward. "Time to go." I watched them drive away, feeling lighter somehow. Brandon appeared at my side. "Ready?" At the office, Michael waited with a stack of papers and a bottle of champagne. "Everything's in order. Ross Industries' remaining legitimate assets will be transferred to your company's management." "Poetic justice," Prudence commented, reviewing the documents. "The company you built honestly now owns what's left of the one that tried to destroy you." "Not destroy," I corrected, signing the papers. "Control. There's a difference." Speaking of control, Brandon pulled out a small box. "Maybe it's time to build something else, too." The room went silent as he got down on one knee. "No marriage fund needed this time. Just us, building a life the right way. What do you say?" Through tears, I laughed. "You're really proposing in the middle of a business acquisition?" Seemed fitting. He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant ring. "You're the CEO of my heart?" "That was terrible," I said, pulling him up to kiss him. "Yes, absolutely yes." Prudence popped the champagne while Michael distributed glasses. Dad smiled, looking happier than he had in months. "To new beginnings," Michael proposed. "And honest endings," Dad added. My phone buzzed. A message from the prison. Mom requesting visitation rights. I showed it to Dad. "Your choice," he said. "But remember, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting." I typed a response. "Not yet. Maybe someday. Build something honest first, starting with yourself." Prudence cleared her throat. "Since we're doing announcements, I just got off the phone with Forbes. They want to feature you in their 30 Under 30 issue. The angle? Building an empire with integrity." Brandon hugged me from behind. "See? The right way wins." "It's not about winning anymore," I said, looking around at my real family. The one I chose, the one that chose me. "It's about building something that lasts." Dad raised his glass. "To my daughter, who taught me what real success looks like." "To us," Brandon added, squeezing my hand. "To integrity," Prudence chimed in. "To love," I finished, feeling complete for the first time in years. Outside, the city hummed with energy and possibility. The same view I'd looked at through tears of betrayal now showed me a future built on trust, love, and honest work. My phone buzzed again. Mom's reply. "I understand. I'll try to become someone worthy of your forgiveness." I put the phone away, turning to Brandon. "Let's go home." "Home," he smiled. "I like the sound of that." As we left the office, I paused at the door, looking back at our company logo. The empire I'd built wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who believed in doing things right. Coming? Brandon held out his hand. I took it, stepping into our future. Some people build empires to prove their worth to others. But I'd learned the most important lesson. The only person you need to prove anything to is yourself. And I'd done that, one honest decision at a time.
I never thought my own brother would be the one to destroy everything we built together. But there he was, standing in our family business's conference room, his hand firmly gripping his wife Catherine's as they delivered the news that would shatter my world. My name is Lexis, and until last Tuesday, I was the creative director of Sullivan Home Furnishings, a business my brother Ethan and I had built from the ground up with our inheritance money. At least, that's what I thought we were building together. The board has decided to go in a different direction, Ethan said, his voice cold and detached. The board he referred to consisted of himself, Catherine, and 2 of her college friends who'd bought shares last year. Your creative vision doesn't align with our future goals. I gripped the edge of the conference table, my knuckles turning white. Different direction? I brought in 60% of our new clients last quarter. Catherine's perfectly painted lips curved into a condescending smile. Sweetie, your eco-friendly furniture line idea is cute, but it's not profitable. We need to focus on mass production, not saving trees. Those designs are innovative, I shot back. They're what customers want. I've done the research, The decision is final, Ethan cut me off. We're buying out your shares. The paperwork is ready. My eyes burned with unshed tears as I looked at my brother. Mom and Dad would be ashamed of you. Something flickered in his eyes. Guilt, maybe? But Catherine squeezed his hand, and his expression hardened again. Don't bring them into this. This is business. Business? I laughed bitterly. Remember when we were kids, and you promised to always have my back? Was that business too? People grow up, Lexis, Catherine interjected. Maybe it's time you did too. I stood up so quickly my chair toppled backward. You've been poisoning him against me since day one, haven't you? That's enough. Ethan slammed his hand on the table. Take the buyout. It's generous. Start fresh somewhere else. The next few hours passed in a blur of paperwork and legal jargon. My hand shook as I signed away my stake in the company. My company. Our company. Later that night, I sat in my best friend Bridget's apartment, nursing a glass of wine while she paced furiously. They can't do this to you, she exclaimed. There must be something. They did it legally, I interrupted. Catherine made sure of that. Bridget stopped pacing and sat beside me. So what now? I took another sip of wine, remembering Catherine's dismissive words about my eco-friendly furniture line. Now? I'm going to prove them wrong. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone and showed Bridget the designs I'd been working on for months. These sustainable furniture pieces? They're just the beginning. I'm going to build something bigger. Better. Something that matters. You're serious about this? Dead serious. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. They think they've beaten me? They have no idea what I'm capable of. Bridget was quiet for a moment before asking, What do you need? I turned to face her, feeling a surge of determination replace my earlier despair. A business partner who believes in making beautiful things without destroying the planet. Know anyone? A slow smile spread across her face. As a matter of fact, I do. That night, as I lay in Bridget's guest bedroom, I couldn't sleep. My phone kept lighting up with messages from former colleagues expressing their shock and sympathy. I ignored them all except one, from my niece Marley, Ethan's 8-year-old daughter. I miss you already, Aunt Lexis, I typed back. Miss you too, sweetie. Then I blocked Ethan's and Catherine's numbers. They thought they were so clever, pushing me out, treating my ideas like some naive fantasy. But they'd just made the biggest mistake of their lives. Because now I had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. I opened my laptop and started working on a business plan. The sun was rising by the time I finished the first draft, but I didn't feel tired. I felt alive, energized, ready. They wanted to talk about business? Fine. I'd show them exactly what business looked like when you combined passion with purpose. And when I succeeded, not if, when, I'd make sure they had front row seats to watch everything they dismissed turn into gold. Game on, dear brother. Game on. 3 months after the betrayal, I was hunched over my laptop in the tiny office space Bridget and I had rented, surrounded by material samples and prototype sketches. The clock read 2 a.m., but I barely noticed anymore. Late nights had become my new normal. "You're still here?" Bridget's voice startled me. She stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. "Just finishing these supplier quotes," I said, accepting the coffee gratefully. "Did you know bamboo can be processed into the softest fabric?" "Lex, you need to sleep sometimes." She pulled up a chair beside me. "The sustainable furniture industry isn't going to disappear overnight." I gestured at my screen. "Look at these numbers. Traditional furniture manufacturing creates tons of waste. If we can perfect our zero-waste process—" "We will," Bridget interrupted, "but not if you burn yourself out first." My phone buzzed, another Instagram notification. I'd been documenting our journey of creating eco-friendly furniture, and surprisingly, people were interested. Our follower count had grown from 0 to 15,000 in just 2 months. "Speaking of which," Bridget said, suddenly animated, "remember that investor I mentioned last week, Dexter?" I nodded, barely looking up from my spreadsheet. "He's coming tomorrow." That got my attention. "What? Tomorrow? Why didn't you tell me sooner?" "Because you would have spent 3 days obsessing over the presentation instead of sleeping." She grinned. "Which you're about to do anyway, aren't you?" "We need this, Bridge." I closed my laptop and turned to face her fully. "The prototypes are ready, but we need capital to start production. Real production, not just custom pieces." "I know." She squeezed my hand. "And we're ready. Our business plan is solid, our designs are innovative, and our mission is clear. Dexter's going to love it." A memory flashed through my mind, Catherine's mocking voice. "Eco-friendly furniture? Cute." I pushed it away. "What time tomorrow?" 2 p.m., and yes, you have time to go home and change first." I looked down at my wrinkled shirt and laughed. Point taken. The next morning I was arranging our prototype displays when my niece Marley's face popped up on my phone. I hesitated before answering. "Aunt Lexis," her excited voice filled the room. "Guess what? I got the lead in the school play." "That's amazing, sweetie." I tried to sound enthusiastic while my heart ached. These calls were becoming harder. "Mom says we can't invite you to watch it," she said quietly, "but I wanted you to know anyway." I swallowed hard. "I'm proud of you, Marley. Break a leg, okay?" After hanging up, I stood there for a moment, fighting back tears. Bridget appeared with our presentation materials. "Marley?" she asked softly. I nodded. "Let's make this meeting count," she said, squeezing my shoulder. "Show them what they're missing." At exactly 2 p.m., Dexter Fleming walked into our office. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 40s, wearing a casual blazer and carrying a reusable water bottle. Good sign. "So," he said after introductions, "show me why I should invest in sustainable furniture when the market is dominated by cheap, mass-produced alternatives." I picked up one of our prototype chairs. This chair is made from reclaimed wood and recycled metal. The cushioning? Bamboo-based fabric filled with recycled fiber. 0 new trees cut, 0 waste produced. "Admirable," he said, running his hand along the smooth surface. "But can you scale it?" "We've already identified suppliers and manufacturers who share our vision." I pulled up our production plans. What we need is capital to meet minimum order requirements. For the next hour, we walked him through everything. Our zero-waste manufacturing process, our direct-to-consumer model, our growing social media following. "Your passion is evident," Dexter said finally. "But what makes you sure you can succeed where others have failed?" I met his eyes. "Because this isn't just business for us. Every piece we create means 1 less tree cut down, 1 less ton of waste in landfills. And consumers are ready for change. Our waitlist for custom pieces proves it." He nodded slowly, then reached for his briefcase. "I have some concerns about your distribution model, but—" He pulled out a folder. "Let's talk numbers." After he left, Bridget and I stared at each other in shock. Did that just happen? She whispered. I looked at the preliminary investment agreement in my hands. It did. We're actually doing this. We're doing this, she confirmed, grinning. Ready to show the world what sustainable luxury really looks like? I thought about Marley's play, about Ethan and Catherine, about all the nights I'd spent doubting myself. More than ready. It's time to make some waves. Little did I know just how big those waves would become. 6 months after Dexter's investment, I stood backstage at the Sustainable Living Expo, my heart racing. Our booth had drawn consistent crowds all day, but this was different. Stella Black, eco-conscious celebrity and social media powerhouse, was about to tour the expo. Stop fidgeting, Bridget whispered, adjusting our display. You look like you're about to jump out of your skin. Can you blame me? Stella has 20 million followers. One post from her, and we'd be swamped with orders, Bridget finished. I know, but remember what Dexter said. Act like we belong here, I recited. Because we do. The buzz of conversation grew louder, and suddenly there she was, Stella Black, surrounded by her team, stopping at our booth. My mouth went dry. This is gorgeous, she said, running her hand along our best-selling bamboo lounge chair. The craftsmanship is incredible. I stepped forward. Everything we create is sustainable and zero waste. Even the packaging is biodegradable. She turned to me, genuinely interested. Really? Tell me more. For the next 15 minutes, I walked her through our process, our mission, our vision. She asked intelligent questions about sourcing and manufacturing, clearly more than just a celebrity endorser. I'm renovating my Malibu home, she said finally. Would you be interested in furnishing it? Completely eco-friendly, of course. I managed to keep my voice steady. We'd be honored. Perfect, she turned to her assistant. Set up a meeting for next week. Then back to me. I love supporting women-owned businesses that actually care about the planet. After she left, Bridget grabbed my arm. Did that just happen? I think it did. I checked my phone. Stella had already posted about us. Our follower count was skyrocketing. That evening, during our celebration dinner with Dexter, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with notifications. This is just the beginning, Dexter said, raising his glass. Stella's home will be featured in Architectural Digest. That's massive exposure. We'll need to scale up production, I said, already making mental notes. The current facility won't be enough. Already handled, Dexter replied. I've secured a larger manufacturing space. Triple the size, still maintaining our eco-friendly standards. Bridget squeezed my hand under the table. We'd done it. Really done it. The next morning I was in our office early, responding to the flood of inquiries, when I overheard 2 employees discussing local business news. Did you hear about Sullivan Home Furnishings? One asked. Apparently they're struggling. Lost 3 major contracts last month. I froze, my coffee cup halfway to my lips. Yeah, heard they're having quality issues, something about cheap materials and bad customer service. I shouldn't have cared. I shouldn't have felt anything. But I did. Later that day, I was reviewing designs for Stella's house when Bridget burst into my office. Have you seen this? She thrust her tablet at me. On screen was a business magazine article, Traditional Furniture Giants Face Modern Challenge, The Rise of Eco-Friendly Alternatives. And there was our company, featured prominently as the leading innovator in sustainable furniture. Read the comments, Bridget urged. I scrolled down. Is this the same Lexus who left Sullivan Home Furnishings? One read. Talk about karma. My phone rang. Dexter. I assume you've seen the article, he said when I answered. There's more. Home and Style magazine wants to feature your story, the female entrepreneur who turned betrayal into $1 million sustainable business. I sat back in my chair. Should I do it? Absolutely. Your story will inspire others. Plus, it's fantastic PR. After hanging up, I opened my personal email, the one I never checked anymore. There were dozens of messages from former colleagues, all sharing the same theme. They should have listened to me. One email caught my eye, from Catherine. Subject: We should talk. I deleted it without opening it. You okay? Bridget asked softly. I looked around our office, at the mood boards for Stella's house, the prototype sketches for our new collection, the team busy at their desks. Better than okay, I replied. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. My phone buzzed again, Stella's assistant confirming our meeting. As I typed a response, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked different, stronger, more confident. The woman who'd been forced out of her family business was gone. In her place was someone who'd built something meaningful, something that mattered. And this was just the beginning. The Architectural Digest spread featuring Stella's Malibu home hit newsstands on a Wednesday. By Thursday morning, our website had crashed 3 times from traffic overload. We need better servers, Bridget announced, bursting into my office, and more customer service staff, and possibly a clone of you. I laughed, but it was strained. I'd been up since 4 a.m. dealing with the overflow of orders. How's the waiting list looking? 3 months for custom pieces, but that's not why I'm here. She closed the door. You need to see this. She pulled up a local business news website. The headline made my stomach drop. Sullivan Home Furnishings faces bankruptcy rumors amid mass layoffs. There's more, Bridget said quietly. I was at that networking event downtown last night. People are talking. Ethan's been drinking, showing up late to meetings. Catherine's trying to hold things together, but not our problem, I said firmly, turning back to my computer. Lex? I said it's not our problem. My voice came out sharper than intended. The intercom buzzed. Ms. Lexis, Dexter's here for the quarterly review. I straightened my desk, grateful for the interruption. Send him in. Dexter entered, looking pleased. Have you seen the numbers? Your revenue has tripled since the Stella Black project. We need to talk about expansion, I said, pulling up our projections. We can't keep up with demand. Already ahead of you. He spread out some papers. I've found a perfect location for a flagship store. Prime retail space, excellent foot traffic. My phone rang. Unknown number. I declined it. As I was saying, my phone rang again. Same number. Take it, Bridget said. Could be important, I answered. Hello? Aunt Lexis? Marley's voice was small, worried. Dad's crying in his office. Mom said not to bother him, but I'm scared. My throat tightened. Where's your mom? On the phone with lawyers. She doesn't know I'm calling. Everything's going to be okay, sweetie. Your dad's just dealing with some grown-up stuff. Are you still mad at them? Is that why you never visit? Dexter and Bridget were pretending not to listen, studying their papers intently. It's complicated, Marley, but I'm never mad at you, okay? Or Willie. Dad misses you. He said so last night when he thought I was sleeping. After saying goodbye, I sat in silence for a moment. Take the rest of the day, Dexter said gently. We can finish this tomorrow. I shook my head. I'm fine. The flagship store location? My phone buzzed with a text. Ethan. I know Marley called you. Please, we need to talk. Go, Bridget said firmly. You won't be able to focus anyway. I ended up at the park where Ethan and I used to play as kids. Sitting on a bench, I watched families enjoying the late afternoon sun. A father was teaching his daughter to ride a bike, just like our dad had done for us. My phone buzzed again. Catherine this time. I know we don't deserve it, but please hear us out. For the kids. I thought about Marley's voice, small and frightened. About Willie, who probably didn't even remember when I used to babysit him every weekend. A new message from Ethan. I'm sorry. I know those words mean nothing now, but I am. Please call me. I closed my eyes, remembering the day they forced me out, the humiliation, the betrayal, the weeks of crying myself to sleep. Opening my eyes, I typed, tomorrow, 10 a.m., the coffee shop on 7th. Ethan replied instantly, thank you. That night, I couldn't sleep. I pulled up the article about Sullivan Home Furnishings again. The comments were brutal. That's what happens when you prioritize profit over quality. Karma's a witch. Heard they pushed out the creative director who actually had vision. My phone lit up with a text from Bridget. Whatever you decide tomorrow, I've got your back. I walked to my home office, where I kept a photo I couldn't bring myself to throw away. It was from the day we opened Sullivan Home Furnishings, Ethan and me, arms around each other, grinning at the camera. We'd been so happy, so full of dreams. Now I had everything I'd ever wanted. Success, recognition, vindication. So why did it feel like something was still missing? I picked up my phone and typed another message to Ethan. Bring coffee. You still remember how I take it? His response came seconds later. Oat milk latte, extra shot, no sugar. Some things you never forget. I put the phone down and stared out the window at the city lights. Tomorrow would either bring closure or open old wounds. I wasn't sure which scared me more. I arrived at the coffee shop 20 minutes early, but Ethan was already there. He looked terrible. His usually immaculate suit was wrinkled, dark circles under his eyes. Catherine sat beside him, her perfect posture unchanged, but her designer outfit noticeably last season's. You came, Ethan said, pushing my coffee across the table. We weren't sure. I came for Marley, I said, sitting down. She sounded scared. Catherine flinched. The children don't know how bad things are. We've tried to shield them. How bad are things? Ethan ran a hand through his graying hair. We're 3 months behind on payroll. The bank's threatening to call our loans. Our biggest supplier just canceled our contract. What happened? I asked, even though I already knew. We cut corners, he admitted. Cheaper materials, overseas manufacturing. The quality dropped, but we thought we could maintain the profit margins. The same profit margins you said my eco-friendly line would destroy? I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Lexus, Catherine leaned forward, her voice softer than I'd ever heard it. We were wrong, terribly wrong, about everything. We watched you succeed, Ethan added. Saw how you built something meaningful while we destroyed what Dad built. I took a sip of my coffee, perfectly made, just as I liked it. What do you want from me? Partnership, Catherine said quickly. A merger. Your brand is thriving, and you understand this market better than anyone. I laughed, harsh and sharp. You want me to save you, after what you did? We want to make it right, Ethan's voice cracked. I know we don't deserve it, but Lexus, please. There are 50 families depending on these jobs. And Marley and Willie. Don't, I cut him off. Don't use your children to manipulate me. It's not manipulation, Catherine's eyes filled with tears. We're desperate. Yesterday, Marley asked if she could sell her toys to help pay the bills. She overheard us talking and... I stood up abruptly. I need some air. Outside, I paced the sidewalk, my hands shaking. Through the window, I could see Ethan comforting a crying Catherine, something I'd never seen before. My phone buzzed. Bridget, how's it going? I typed back. They want a merger. Her response was immediate. Want me to come down there? Before I could reply, the coffee shop door opened. Ethan stepped out. Remember when Dad was sick? He asked quietly. You stayed at the hospital every night for 2 weeks while I handled the business. Don't. You've always been the better person, Lex. The one who cared more about people than profits. I lost sight of that. Lost sight of everything that mattered. You chose Catherine over me. I chose wrong. His voice broke. I chose wrong about everything, and now I'm about to lose it all, including my children's respect. I turned to face him. Do you know what it felt like? Sitting in that conference room, watching my own brother betray me? No, he whispered. But I know what it feels like to wake up every day knowing I destroyed the most important relationship in my life. Knowing my little sister will never trust me again. Through the window, I saw Catherine on her phone, probably talking to lawyers. She looked defeated, nothing like the confident woman who'd helped push me out. If, I said slowly, and I mean if I considered helping, it would be on my terms, completely. Hope flickered in his eyes. Anything. I need time to think, to talk to my team. Of course. He reached for me, then stopped himself. Thank you for just... listening. Back inside, I gathered my things. I'll have my lawyers contact you next week. Catherine stood. Lexus, for what it's worth. I'm sorry. I was jealous of your relationship with Ethan, of your creativity, of everything. I let that jealousy poison everything. I nodded stiffly and left, my mind racing. At the office, Bridget was waiting. Well, they're worse off than we thought. I sank into my chair. Catherine actually apologized. Like, genuinely apologized. And I don't know what to do. I showed her the latest text from Marley. Thank you for meeting Mom and Dad. I love you, Aunt Lexis. Bridget studied me. You're considering it, aren't you? Maybe. I pulled up our company financials. But if we do this, it's going to be on our terms. Complete rebranding, new management structure, eco-friendly overhaul of their entire operation. You're too good, you know that? I thought about Marley and Willie, about the 50 families facing unemployment, about my brother's broken expression. No, I said quietly. I just remember what Dad always said. Success means nothing if you lose your humanity along the way. Now I just had to figure out how to help my family without losing everything I'd built. Absolutely not, Dexter said, pacing my office. This is business suicide. They'll drag you down with them. I spread out the merger proposal I'd spent 3 days crafting. Look at the numbers. Their manufacturing facility is twice the size of ours. With proper management? Proper management? He stopped pacing. These people betrayed you, Lexis. Have you forgotten that? Trust me, I haven't. I pulled up a spreadsheet. But their facility is perfect for our expansion plans. We'd control everything. Production, management, branding. They'd essentially work for us. Bridget, who'd been quietly observing, spoke up. It's actually brilliant. We get their resources without the baggage of their brand name. And Ethan and Catherine? Dexter demanded. What about them? Ethan knows manufacturing. He can handle operations under our supervision. Catherine... I paused. She'll need to step down. My phone buzzed. Catherine herself. The bank's giving us until Friday. You're too close to this, Dexter insisted, emotionally compromised. Maybe, I admitted, but I'm also right. This is a smart business move, emotions aside. The door opened and Stella Black swept in, early for our scheduled meeting. Sorry to interrupt, but I couldn't help overhearing. You're considering a merger with Sullivan Home Furnishings? I nodded, surprised. You know about them? I know everything about my investments. She sat down gracefully. And I think you should do it. Dexter started to protest, but she held up a hand. Think about the story. Eco-conscious female entrepreneur saves failing traditional business, transforms it into sustainable powerhouse. The press will eat it up. This isn't about press, I said. No, she agreed. It's about family. But why can't it be both? Redemption stories sell, darling. And this one's perfect. After they left, I called Ethan. Conference room tomorrow, 9 a.m. Bring Catherine and your lawyers. The next morning, I arrived early to find them already waiting. Catherine's eyes were red-rimmed, Ethan's hands shaking as he clutched his coffee cup. I placed the proposal on the table. This is my offer. Non-negotiable. Their lawyer read it first, eyebrows rising. This is essentially a hostile takeover. No, I corrected. It's a rescue package, with conditions. Catherine reached for the document. Her face paled as she read. You want me to resign? You'll retain your shares, but yes, no management role. And me? Ethan asked quietly. Head of operations, reporting directly to our board. Your manufacturing experience is valuable, but you'll have no executive power. The lawyer leaned forward. This is highly unusual. Take it or declare bankruptcy, I cut in. Your choice. Catherine stood abruptly, tears streaming down her face. I'll be outside. After she left, Ethan studied the proposal. You're rebranding everything? Completely? Sullivan Home Furnishings dies today. Everything will be absorbed into my brand. The employees? Keep their jobs if they meet our standards. We'll provide retraining. He nodded slowly. And us? As family? I met his eyes. That depends on you. This is business, family. That's something we'll have to rebuild separately. Can we? His voice cracked. Rebuild it? Marley called me yesterday, I said. Asked if I'd come to her school play next week. She misses you so much. I miss her too. And Willie. I took a deep breath. Sign the papers, Ethan. Let me fix what you broke, both the business and our family. He picked up the pen. Catherine won't like this. Catherine's pride isn't my concern. Your children's future is. He signed, hand trembling slightly. What do we tell the employees? The truth. That change is coming, but their jobs are secure if they're willing to adapt. After everything was signed, after the lawyers left, after Catherine returned with red eyes to add her signature, Ethan lingered. Thank you, he whispered. Not just for the business, but for giving me a chance to earn back your trust. Don't waste it, I warned. I won't offer another one. That evening, I sat in my office looking at the signed merger documents. My phone lit up with a text from Marley. Mom's crying, but Dad says everything will be better now. Will you really come to my play? I typed back, front row, sweetie, I promise. Bridget appeared with 2 glasses of champagne. To the new chapter? I took a glass, thinking about the challenges ahead. Retraining staff, rebranding, rebuilding family bonds. To second chances, I corrected. And doing things right this time. Through my office window, I could see the city skyline, the same view I'd had when I started over a year ago. But this time, I wasn't alone in my fight. This time, I was leading the way. The first day of the merger felt like walking into a war zone. I stood before the combined staff in the main manufacturing facility, feeling every eye on me. Change is scary, I began, but necessary. Every person in this room has a place in our future if you're willing to embrace it. A worker raised his hand. We heard rumors about switching to all eco-friendly materials. That'll take months of retraining. Which will provide, I assured him, full pay during the transition. Another voice angry. And Catherine, just pushed out after 15 years? That was my choice, Catherine said, stepping forward. Her voice shook slightly. This company needs new direction. Sometimes leaders have to step aside. I caught her eye, surprised by her support. She gave me a small nod. The questions continued for an hour. I answered each one honestly, even the hostile ones. By the end, the tension had eased slightly. Ethan led the facility tour afterward, explaining current processes. He seemed different, more focused, less arrogant. These machines, he said, patting a huge saw, they're only 3 years old, can be retrofitted for sustainable materials. Good, I nodded. Start with Aunt Lexis. A small figure burst through the door and wrapped around my legs. Willie, followed by an embarrassed-looking Catherine. Sorry, she said. Daycare called. He's got a fever. I had no one else to... My office, I said immediately. There's a couch. He can rest while you finish your handover documents. Willie looked up at me with bright eyes. Can you read me a story? I have meetings, buddy, but... I turned to my assistant. Reschedule everything after 2. Family comes first. Catherine's eyes welled up. Later that afternoon, I sat in my new office, Willie asleep on the couch, when Ethan knocked. Production team's on board, he reported. They're actually excited about the new materials. Good, I gestured to the chair. Sit, we need to talk about Marley's play tomorrow. He sat heavily. Catherine's not handling things well. Might be better if you didn't. I promised Marley. I'm going. It's just, seeing you take her position... She tried to destroy me, Ethan. Actions have consequences. He nodded slowly. I know. We both deserve this. But she's still their mother. Which is why she's keeping her shares. Why she'll still have an income. I looked at Willie, peaceful in sleep. I'm not heartless. No, he agreed. You're better than we were. The next evening, I sat in the school auditorium, watching Marley shine as the lead in Alice in Wonderland. Catherine sat 3 rows ahead, alone. Ethan was beside me. During intermission, I made a decision. I walked to Catherine's row. Come sit with us, I said quietly. She looked up, startled. What? This isn't about us. It's about Marley. Come sit with her family. She followed me back, sitting stiffly beside Ethan. When Marley took her final bow, we all stood together, cheering. Afterward, Marley ran to us, still in costume. Did you see? Did you see me fall down the rabbit hole? You were amazing, sweetie, Catherine and I said simultaneously. We looked at each other, and something shifted. Not forgiveness exactly, but understanding. Back at the office the next day, Bridget found me reviewing transition plans. Stella called, she announced. The press wants to do a feature. Sisters in Sustainability, about how you're mentoring Catherine through her eco-friendly jewelry line launch. I looked up sharply. Her what? She didn't tell you? She's using her settlement to start over, making jewelry from recycled materials. I sat back, processing this. My phone buzzed. Catherine. Can we talk? About the jewelry line? I stared at the message for a long moment before replying, Lunch tomorrow? Her response was immediate. Thank you. Ethan appeared in my doorway. Production meeting in 5. Also, Marley wants to know if you'll help with her science project. It's about environmental impact. I smiled. Tell her Sunday afternoon. We'll make it a family thing. Family thing, he repeated softly. I like the sound of that. Looking around at what we'd built and rebuilt in just a few weeks, I felt something I hadn't expected. Peace. The merger wasn't just about business anymore. It was about healing, about second chances, about family. My phone buzzed again. Dexter. Stock price up 15% since merger announcement. Still think I was wrong? I typed back. For once, being right isn't what matters most. Because sometimes, I was learning, the biggest victories aren't about winning at all. They're about finding a way for everyone to move forward together, even if the path there isn't what you expected. The magazine interviewer sat across from me in our newly renovated showroom, surrounded by our latest sustainable furniture collection. So, what's next for your brand? Before I could answer, rapid footsteps approached. Aunt Lexus, look what Mom and I made! Marley burst in, holding up a delicate necklace made from recycled copper and sea glass. Catherine followed, looking apologetic. Sorry to interrupt, she said. We were in the workshop downstairs and she couldn't wait. It's perfect timing, I told the interviewer. This is what's next. Family collaborations. Catherine's eyes widened as I continued. We're launching a home accessories line featuring Catherine's sustainable jewelry and decor pieces, designed to complement our furniture. That's not what we discussed, Catherine stammered. I know. I was waiting for the right moment to suggest it. I turned to the interviewer. Would you like to see the workshop? Downstairs, Ethan was training new staff on our zero-waste manufacturing process. He'd thrown himself into the role, innovating ways to repurpose every scrap of material. Our latest dining table, he explained to the workers, uses reclaimed wood and recycled metal, but the real innovation is in the joinery technique. No chemical adhesives needed. And the sawdust? One worker asked. Goes to Catherine's workshop, he grinned. They're experimenting with wood composite jewelry. The interviewer scribbled frantically. This level of family collaboration is unusual in business, especially given your history. The past is the past, I said firmly. We're focused on building something meaningful together. Later, during our weekly family dinner at my place, Willie proudly showed everyone his science project, a model of our manufacturing facility, complete with tiny solar panels. And here's where we make everything eco-friendly, he explained seriously. Dad taught me all about it. Speaking of teaching, Bridget chimed in, wait until you hear about our latest initiative. I nodded for her to continue. She'd been bubbling with excitement all day. We're launching a mentorship program, she announced, teaching other traditional manufacturers how to transition to sustainable practices. Using our merger as a case study, I added, proving that profit and planet protection can coexist. Catherine set down her fork. That's why you wanted my jewelry line in the showroom, to show it's possible to completely reinvent yourself. Exactly. I met her eyes. Your journey from fast furniture to sustainable jewelry is powerful. It makes people believe change is possible. Family dinner's getting awfully business-focused, Ethan observed, but he was smiling. Fine, I laughed. New rule, no business talk for the rest of dinner. Marley, how's the new school play going? As Marley launched into a detailed description of her role as a tree sprite, I looked around the table. Ethan and Catherine sitting comfortably together, their earlier tension gone. Willie, animatedly explaining his project to Bridget, the family I'd almost lost, now stronger than ever. My phone buzzed. Stella. Architectural Digest wants to feature your whole family's eco-innovation story. Interested? I typed back, let me ask them. Hey, I interrupted Marley's story. How would everyone feel about doing a magazine feature? All of us together? Even me? Catherine asked quietly. Especially you. Your story matters too. She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, the first time she'd initiated contact since the merger. On one condition, Ethan said. We include the photo of us from opening day of the original store. Show how far we've come. Deal. I raised my glass. To family, the ones who challenge us, change us, and choose to grow with us. To family, they echoed. After dinner, as everyone helped clean up, a new tradition, Marley tugged my sleeve. Aunt Lexis, are you still mad at Mom and Dad sometimes? I knelt to her level. Sometimes feelings are complicated, sweetie. But you know what's not complicated? Loving you and Willie, and knowing that working together is better than fighting. She hugged me tight. I'm glad you're not gone anymore. In the kitchen, Catherine was loading the dishwasher. I heard that, she said softly. She's right. Having you back, it's better. We're better. We are, I agreed. All of us. Through the window, I could see Ethan showing Willie the stars, pointing out constellations like our dad used to do. Bridget was gathering her things, declining Catherine's offer to share her car service home. This was my reality now. Not just success, but family. Not just winning, but growing. Not just leading, but lifting others up along the way. And somehow, that felt like the biggest victory of all.